Cool. Hey, everybody. Nick, Brandon, and Barrett here, also known as Amongst Friends podcast. Today, we got a fun episode for you. We're going to be talking about music. We're going to talk about like our backgrounds with music, our favorite types of music, just the influence it's had on our lives, and just have fun with the topic. So, for those of you watching us live, definitely comment, be a part of the conversation. Let us know if there's ideas or thoughts you have about music that you want us to talk about, or ideas you want to share about your own experiences. So, yeah, um, how's it going, everybody? I mean,
Good.
specifically Brandon and
Yeah,
Barrett.
doing good, doing good.
Cool. So, I figure we start by one second. Let me mute. I've got double audio coming through. Thought one fun way to start, we talked about, right, it would be to kind of talk about our different just backgrounds in general of just music and whatever that is. So you guys can go first, but yeah, just tell me about like what's y'all's experience with music just throughout your life, and what's it meant to you and what hasn't it meant to you, whatever.
Brandon, I'm gonna let you go first. I need to like think how I'm gonna formulate because it's a loaded question.
It is.
And it's loaded with like an entire timeline of
No,
how it got here.
I've definitely got like I was telling Nick before this. I was like, I've definitely got. I took a few notes before this, and
Mm,
I've probably got 7 or 8 bullet points. Maybe not exactly specific moments, but definitely core memories of why I'm into now. And I mean, I don't really know where to start other than just the cliche answer of like, I mean, I've listened to everything, been into everything at one point in time, like whether it's rock, hip hop, country, even like gospel at one point, just a little bit of everything. Um, but I think overall, like I just always eh, go back to rock in some form. Um, I
When did
know.
you first, gas question, like when did you first start listening to rock? Who introduced you to it?
I mean, that was just the radio. Like growing up, like my mom mainly listened to like 80s music. My dad always listened to classic rock, so it was always something like that on the radio. Anytime they were together, it was usually country, so that's where like part of the country comes from. But yeah, like one of the earliest memories is my dad was big car guy, so pretty much every weekend, any vacation we ever took was always to like a car show or something. And so like one of the earliest memories there is one of the bigger trips we usually took about 2 times a year, like spring and fall, was a car show up in Pigeon Forge, and riding up the Tail of the Dragon all the way through Wares Valley and everything. I like one of the core memories is being he had a '66 Chevelle, and was like the one thing I always remember being in the radio was like Bob Seger's greatest hits. And so like there's just like 4 or 5 songs from that that's just like still part of like soundtrack to my childhood for the most part. Um, but like I said, always into everything. That part of rock was one thing. Um, anytime like another one would be I don't remember I can't remember what year it came out, but my aunt used to take me and my cousin to the movies all the time, and the one movie I remember the most out of anything else where I left the theater thinking like, man, this is the music I'm into, like, and it kind of opened me up to so many different genres, but that was School of Rock. Um, I remember just coming out of the
Nice.
theater being like, it didn't matter like what genre it is, like what form, but I was like, this is the kind of music I'm into. And I know it's probably one Barrett will touch on a little bit more, but the other one would be Tony Hawk's Pro Skater and just the punk inspiration there. Like I said, too many different artists were like just between that movie and that game, like too many different artists were like just deep dives into their full catalog any chance I got.
What was it about like the School of Rock music that like made you latch onto it? Did you just genuinely love the songs they covered in the
Yeah,
movie, or was it that they had so much fun with it?
for
Like
the most part, and I
what's
think part of it was like seeing the other kids like learn it, play it for them
mm,
playing it too. So yeah, just
gotcha, gotcha.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
makes sense.
um, I had to go back and I literally I called my mom earlier. I was like, uh, "Hey, what did I like?" I'm trying to remember like my first albums and first CDs and like early getting into music and what I liked. And a lot of whenever I was under 10 years old, it was country and pop music. Um, she reminded me that the first song that I ever knew all the words to was Toby Keith's Big Old Truck. She said that that was my like first favorite song ever. So I feel like I really needed to start set the origin in country and pop because like I mean the Black Eyed Peas and like old Black Eyed Peas, Usher used to love stuff like that, and um, that grew into my stepdad was the biggest music influence on me, like the stuff he grew up listening to. So that's where like he would have old cat like those old binders, flip binders with like 4 CDs, and he'd have all of his CDs in there, and it's like this thick. And I mean, I remember vividly going through and listening to like bands that I'd heard, like especially whenever like VH1 and MTV started showing music videos every morning. And like when I latched onto that, it was like seeking those things out, and he had so much of it. So like through that, I discovered stuff like Korn, which was like one of my first favorite like metal rock bands. Um, uh, Incubus, Tool, um, going down that vein of stuff. And then I remember hearing Backcountry on VH1, the Avenged Sevenfold's Backcountry, and already being familiar with like a little bit of other Avenged Sevenfold downloading stuff from like LimeWire and FrostWire. I don't know if y'all are familiar with like the old
yeah, I bricked
music, illegal music downloading services of the early
I remember
2000s.
LimeWire.
I bricked a
Yeah.
few
I,
computers in my
I
day.
was like, don't you dare let me die on this hill because you're like, I don't know what you're talking about. I never illegally
I
downloaded
know
music.
the artist you were talking about or whatever first, but no, yeah, no,
No,
LimeWire for sure.
I remember discovering like certain bands specifically through that,
Oh, cool.
and um, I don't know, like so where I started with like country and pop, now that's like out of my music taste. I hardly listen to any of that on purpose. It's like sometimes things will bleed like slip through that I like, but um, yeah. So it grew into VH1 rock and metal songs that would come on, and looking up more of those bands. And I remember when Green Day's American Idiot came out.
Yeah, that was a big time.
This is probably jumbled up order in here, like how I got into
It doesn't
these, but
matter.
like Green Day's American Idiot was like one of the first albums that I remember ever loving an album front to back and being
Mm.
like, this is the best CD of all time. Um, I meant to mention that my first CD that I ever physically owned was Baha Men, the one with Who Let the Dogs Out on it.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so
Nice.
for my first CD was that CD. I can't remember if it was given to me by my parents or if they like bought it for me, but the first CD that I remember seeing out in public and being like, I have to have that because I knew American Idiot was the Heart Grenade American Idiot album. So that one's like, now I can't really stand Green Day, but I feel like they were the biggest segue into heavier stuff because that was probably about the time I started getting into more VH1 and MTV songs and branching out a little bit. And then my stepdad riding to school every morning with him in like great like elementary school, and him listening to Incubus, Tool, Corn, um, some that I ended up growing not to like that are like popular opinion. But I remember learning what I did and didn't like at an early age.
On that same topic, we got a question from the chat um, regarding first concert. Do you guys remember your first concerts you ever went to? All right, Barrett, let's hear yours. I saw you nod.
My first concert was In Sync. It was for my 7th birthday,
Nice.
1998.
Dude, that's pretty cool. Where was it? Was it in Tennessee?
Yeah, it was in Tennessee. I believe it was in Knoxville.
Okay.
I can't remember. It was somewhere. It was somewhere close. It definitely wasn't too far away. It was either in Knoxville or Chattanooga. But I saw NSYNC. But what I've always, for the longest time, whenever you hit that teen angst age and you start denying shit. My second concert was Prince, and that was in
Oh, you lucky.
2001. And it was the Musicology tour. So for the longest time, I told people that Prince was my first concert.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I don't blame you.
But I look
I
back though,
blame you.
dude, and it was NSYNC and Britney Spears. Like Britney Spears was with NSYNC opening up for him. So it's like,
That's
I mean, it's
that's
kind
so
of
cool
crazy to
though.
have been there in that.
Yeah,
And I mean,
exactly.
you put on "Tearing Up My Heart" by NSYNC now, and I mean, I'm singing along every word, so no shame. But
None.
my first two concerts are like very like core memories. Like I remember them vividly.
Wow. And I'm looking at the chat right now to seeing what everybody responded with. Chemical witness. I'm not sure. What is that?
Yeah,
It's also
American
American.
Idiot. Yep.
Nice. And then take root. Kanan. Let's see, that's a share. That's pretty cool.
Nice.
I'm looking at others.
Hmm.
That's pretty cool. No, we got a lot of good ones. What about you, Brandon?
I
Do you have
honestly,
a first you remember?
I can't remember the exact first. There were um, semi-local, like a amusement park, Lake Winnipesaukee. They they used to like throw like random concerts on the weekends, and I remember going to like a couple country concerts there. Don't remember any like specific ones, but I think the first one I went to on my own, like when I could start buying tickets and stuff, was Breaking Benjamin in Chattanooga, and
Cool.
but I mean now to this point, like I've been to so many that kind of all runs together.
Yeah,
No,
like
that's
the
good.
concerts I've been to in the 2010s, like me and Kanan have actually like started finally. I don't know why we waited so long to do it, but finally like, okay, let's go through all the bands we know, write down all the ones that we've seen, and it's a huge list. And I'm like,
Hmm.
now we need to find out how many times we've seen them, try and find out what those tours were, try and find those tour flyers and get the photo of each tour flyer. And I was like, I want to
Hmm.
fill our
That's
hallway with
cool.
all the tour flyers that we've ever been to because bro, it same. Like at this point, I couldn't tell you how many shows I've been to. I've been to so damn many. But
Yeah.
and some bands, seeing them on more times than I can count on at least one band more time than I can count on two hands. But like, I mean, a lot of them being on two hands is. I wish that I'd been smart about it and kept up with it more when I wasn't, so caught up in it. Because now you look
Yeah,
back
I
and you're
get
like, damn, did I do that? Did I go there? Was I?
it.
Yeah.
I think my first concert was Red Jumpsuit Apparatus. You guys
I'm
familiar
going
with
to see
them?
them next week, bro.
Oh my God, I didn't even
I
know
can't believe you
that's
brought them up.
it's
They're
in
going to be in
Chattanooga.
Chattanooga.
Oh my
Yes.
God, I didn't know that's who you were going to see. I had no idea, dude. I saw them. I
That
saw
is my
them.
anthem band. That's my teen angst anthem band. Don't you
Oh,
fake it,
I love Red Jumpsuit.
bro.
Yeah, that's probably the album you
I can
mentioned,
kiss
American
you, bro.
Idiot. Oh well, you can kiss your camera and like I'll turn around.
Don't tempt
You
me.
know. Um, but they were they were one of the first bands. Like, okay, so that album, "Don't You Fake It," that's my American Idiot,
Yeah.
band. Like, and sorry, album, in the sense of every song on it was like. It was like I remember I had a friend at the time when it came out, and he was like, "Yeah, it was easily the best $17 I've ever spent." Was that album, and his point was that every song on it was good. There was no
Yeah. No
filler
misses.
songs. His voice, like I remember just walking. I was working at a summer camp at the time. I remember walking by like the area where everyone would hang out when they're not working. The music video was on for him. So Face Down, was that the song? Like their
Yeah.
big
Yeah,
single.
yeah.
And
Hey,
I
girl, you know
his
you drive
voice,
me crazy. Oh
and
yeah.
his voice was so good. I hadn't. It was
So
so
good.
like high, but he had his range was so good. So anyway, long story short, I knew someone who worked at a radio station in Nashville. So I got to see them twice in the same day. Once at a live radio, all acoustic um, showing they did. So they just did a cappella with like a bongo drum, and for an audience of 20 people. And then you got to go up, take your picture with them, and talk to them for a minute. And then we went to the show that night in what was called at the time Rocket Town in
Yeah.
Nashville,
Yep.
and then it was like a skate park as well. And so that was my first concert. And then there was all these other bands there who I think got pretty big later and stuff. But anyway, that was my first concert, and they were great. They were so good live. And so, and here's the sad part is I haven't been to too many concerts, but the ones I've been to have been pretty awesome. So yeah, anyway, that was mine. But yeah, that's awesome. You know and know who they are and love them. I wasn't sure if that was
I
like
am passionate about that
that's
band and
awesome.
specifically that album. Like me and Kanan listened to almost nothing but Red Jumpsuit on the way back from we went and
Oh,
saw Beartooth in Atlanta like a week or so, a few weeks ago. And the whole way back I was just thinking about throwbacks and then we got stuck on Red Jumpsuit, bro. Like I'm like I don't even know how I put this band down for so long because like and by down I mean just not listen to them for so long because I go back and I listen to I mean, they had good stuff after "Don't You Fake It" too. Like, a few of those albums had
it
really,
wasn't
really. It
it
wasn't the
wasn't as
same,
good.
but "Don't You Fake It"
Yeah.
was definitely like they
Oh,
started
just
strong and
they just had like a great producer. That all the lyrics were just masterful. And
there's
like you said, I don't think
and
it's that they.
LimeWire
Uh huh.
introduced me to demo versions of a lot of those songs. So like
Oh,
the
that's
demo
cool.
version of Face Down had like heavier screaming in it, and I remember like realizing that I
Yeah.
liked heavier stuff basically through some of like finding demos and being like, oh, there's heavier versions of stuff. That's awesome. And Red Jumpsuit was one of those. They had like 3 or 4 songs. You found the demo. It was like so much better. So that's what I ended up doing on the way home was like, we'd listen to a song and I'd be like, all right, now we got to listen to the demo version of it and find it like having to find it on YouTube because it's not anywhere else. Um, I noticed that Teo popped in. I want to say what's up to him. And uh, Kanan mentioned Rocket Town was where Kanan and I went to our first concert together.
Oh,
Uh,
that's awesome. That's so cool.
I've got a photo from that still. But it was our first concert together. We went and saw the headliner was a Skylit Drive, and it was Sleeping with Sirens, but or they were supposed to be on it, and it was the first time that we had ever like we got into them because they were opening for them, and we got there and were off the bill for whatever reason, so it ended up being Tides of Man, which is now the guy that sings for Dance Gavin Dance, and
Gotcha.
Abandon All Ships and For All Those Sleeping. And I got kicked out for crowd surfing during Skylit Drive because Rocket Town has a very stupid, strict don't crowd surf rule.
Dude, there's still a custom Swiss Army knife somewhere in Nashville because my friends had brought me one back from Switzerland and I brought it with me like an idiot. and it had like my name engraved on it. We go there like you can't bring any knives, and like I was like,
A
what am I gonna do?
legitimate Swiss Army knife.
Oh, legit.
Like,
And I this was like, well,
original.
hopefully it's there when we come back and this concert's over. I just like threw it over the railing, and it wasn't. But yeah. Anyway, Rocket Town. That's super cool. I didn't know if that who's familiar with Rocket Town. So,
A few times.
but
It's definitely.
that
I
was
loved it before I went, and then I went and had a few shows there, and it's one of my least favorite venues at this point. But
well, it became that. I think they shut down several times for reasons.
relocating and
Um,
all that bullshit.
let's see here.
Nick,
I'm looking at
I need to know
sir.
your history with music.
Yeah.
I've
Outside
been
of
Um,
speculating on see, you said red jumpsuit apparatus, which is a surprise, and you got my blood pumping, bro. I'm excited. But
I got hopefully more
where does it
surprises
start
for you.
and where does it
I mean,
go?
it starts at church. I mean, music to me for until I was like 10, 11, 12 years old was just church music. My parents were very, and I think some of you guys can relate to this at least in some ways. They were very conservative and very fearful of anything like secular is what they called it. So we didn't listen to like any radio music, any mainstream artists. It was all Christian. So my exposure to music was like praise and worship, as we called it, right? Music at church, and the occasional Donut Man album. I remember. I always make a joke of that. There's like this kids Christian show called the Donut Man. I'll have to find you guys a reference on it or something. But there was like an album to that, and it was basically Barney or Mary Poppins type, music. Um, but yeah, so like music was never really big to me. But then I really got into. But when I did enjoy music, it was like in movies, right? So we did watch a lot of movies. So like the actual film scores, right? Like the orchestral stuff. So like John Williams, anything with Steven Spielberg, like Jurassic Park music, right? Um, I'm trying to think of some Indiana Jones, Star Wars. Like that's where I got exposed to what I would first consider like excellent, awesome music that was like profoundly good. Hook. I remember the music to Hook was incredibly stirring. Like I still listen to it. So it was all orchestral stuff, and the reason that was great was my parents didn't have any reservations about letting me listen to purely instrumental music. They were worried about like sex and drugs and language and all these quote unquote worldly concepts, not getting kind of me exposed to. But like orchestral music was an easy way to like enjoy that. So I started just listening to that stuff, and then and this is where it gets funny. And I used to be embarrassed about this, but I'm not. I'm not really anymore because it's like whatever. But a lot of people at church listened to Creed. Now this was back in like 2012, 2013 at the time, and still it was like some of the greatest music I'd ever heard. Like I'm dead serious. Like I
don't
thought
don't
like
let anybody tell you it's not, because it is.
yeah, well, I get
We've
here where I
all
was
been
going with that
there.
is like I get why it's made fun of, right? I get why Scott Stapp's
Easy.
voice.
It's an easy target. That's it.
But the lyrics, like My Sacrifice, like that song would
Mm-hmm.
like make me cry. Like I just thought it was like all their main hits and stuff. So really got into that, which got me into Alter Bridge later, right? Which is a great same guitarist, right, Brandon?
I
I
know
think
initially the whole band was the same except Scott
it
Stapp.
was everyone except Scott, yeah, except Scott Stapp. So
Yeah,
anyway,
mainly
that
Mark
was it. But
Tremonti.
yeah, but it took a while for my parents to get comfortable with that, even when I was in my teens and stuff. So I kind of just snuck a lot of that music. But yeah, then later, dude, like you were saying, like VH1 had like the midnight music videos they put on stuff. So like as I got in my teens, I was allowed to listen to more. But some favorite artists that like picked up along the way was, I mean, it's like My Chemical Romance for a while was awesome, right? When that was popular. Then Fall Out Boy, their first, or From Under the Cork Tree was an
The
incredible
Cork Tree.
album.
Another one of those albums
Um,
that's like front to back, no misses.
oh, it's exactly. It was just so good. Like, and I remember, guys, you guys remember Sugar We're Going Down, right? Obviously, you remember that song, but no one knew the freaking words to that song because his enunciation was so slurred. Like,
Yeah.
I remember like going and like reading the lyrics to the song until I understood it, and then being
Same.
able to actually sing it. and everyone else was like, down, we're going we're going downtown or something. Like no one knew the words. I remember that. And but yeah, so like yeah, we're gonna exactly
like
same
no
for
one
Dance
knew.
Dance and stuff. So
Yeah.
no, those are big ones. And then yeah, Breaking Benjamin, Avenged Sevenfold, um, Panic at the Disco's first album was
I was gonna
excellent.
say,
That
The
was
fever you can't sweat out. The
yeah,
fever
I
you
was
can't
gonna
sweat
say
out.
if you
So
mention
good.
the Black Album or From Under the Cork Tree, you got to mention A Fever You Can't Sweat Out. There's no way
well,
around
Yeah.
it.
and that's what was that label called? Was it something
Yeah,
Ramen? Everyone,
Fueled by
what
Ramen.
was it? You guys?
Fueled by ramen.
Yes, yeah. So like for a while back in like the early 2000s and through the 2000s, like everything they put out, every band they produced was like a hit, and they had like there was some music from that band you liked, like Gym Class Heroes and stuff, and all that.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that was a lot of it. I'm trying to think of some others, but yeah, those are the main ones. I've still haven't been to too many concerts, and I still love orchestral music. And then there's a question in the chat that kind of like is the last part, kind of can circle back to, and we can jump on that question. But it was from Bryson and or Miss Killigan, and it was a question about favorite video game soundtracks. So that's one thing I didn't mention was like video games. Um, Not necessarily the 8-bit stuff. I like the 8-bit music, but once like PS2, PS3 were coming out, then you were getting the full orchestral soundtracks and stuff like that. Even PS1, you guys mentioned Tony Hawk, right? So
Yeah.
you're actually getting really good, high quality music. Um, but I remember like favorite video game music, which ties back to the orchestral stuff, was the music to Shadow of the Colossus. Is still music I listen to. That's just like one of the best orchestral
Yeah.
soundtracks, like period. But yeah,
Brandy said
that's
my
a
answer. Kingdom
what's
Hearts
that? What?
music.
Oh
There's
yeah, no,
no
that's a
there's
great
no
one.
better music soundtrack in my opinion.
Oh, and so I bounced back. Kanan mentioned, oh, Paramore, Reliant K. This is not the video game. This is just bands in general. But yeah, Reliant K
Yeah.
was huge, and um,
Skillet,
yeah. And then
Pillar.
I was like,
Teo mentioned Red.
oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
those are
Bro.
good.
Yep. All
The
very, very
postal
good.
the postal service
Postal
was that.
service. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, there were so many now that we're talking about it that I'm remembering, but yeah, overall, even to this day, like music to me, like I hear a lot of people say like, oh, I need music. Like at least when I was growing up, everyone, other teenagers and stuff were like, oh, I can't go through the day without listening to music. And that's something like I don't know about you guys, but I never felt that way, and I think it's probably because I got introduced to it so late. I don't know. Some people have been raised on music and stuff, and but for me, it was more like, man, if I can't play if I can't play a video game, I'm gonna freak out. But yeah, to this day, I think orchestral music like
That
is where it's at for me.
you're that makes a lot of sense. Because I've been theory crafting, trying to like
No,
be like,
thanks.
what kind of music does Nick listen to? And I've been over here like just imagining in my head that you listen to like Beethoven, like you listen to classical piano, you know? So like I just
Oh,
imagine like,
thanks. I'll take that as a compliment.
but I mean I'm not totally off because you listening
No,
to
you're not.
orchestral like soundtracks, which I mean all like everything that you said is like, yeah, amazing tracks, amazing like art, like John Williams obviously.
Yeah,
Um
Hans
and,
Zimmer and
but yeah, I've been
yeah.
like trying to consider like or like trying to think about like what is it that he listens to,
Well,
and that like
I'm
nails it.
flattered that I got into your consciousness.
Well, you
Anyway,
had my attention whenever you threw in that red jumpsuit fucking sidetrack.
I'm
I'm
so
like, I
glad
did
it
not
wasn't.
expect that, dude. Like,
That was not by
it's more than a
design.
coincidence that they've come up so many times, and then we're going to see them too. Like,
Man, red jumpsuit, just to jump
you
back to
should
that
go.
jump out. Dude, I I would love
Let's
to
go.
put it that way, but we'll touch on
Let's
that later.
go.
But red jumpsuit, it really inspired me. Like something I didn't talk about. We talked about listening to music, but part of the question was like, what's music been to your life? Like I've always liked to write song lyrics, right? And I don't know any instruments. I can't play instruments for the life of me. But like I can hear the music in my head, and I can write lyrics, and I can hum it and stuff like that. But I've always loved like poetry and music and song lyrics, those are all kind of the same thing to me. But Red Jumpsuit, just to go back to that, is they really inspired me to like write. Like when I heard their lyrics and stuff, I thought they were so good. Like even their singles, I was like, this is so great. Like how do they even think to write this and tell this story and stuff? So I thought that was just incredible. And then that was true for a bunch of other bands. But when I got to see them live at that little radio concert, my question to them, I was probably 16 or 17. My question then was like, when did you guys first write your first song? Right. In the few seconds I had to talk to them, and they were just like, I don't know. We probably started writing when we were teenagers, and we didn't, we don't. I don't even know what the first song was, but that's kind of when we started. And I was like, man, like it made me realize that like they weren't just born Red Jumpsuit Apparatus. Like this is just something they've been doing because they were passionate about. Now they're here, but it made me think like, oh, I should keep doing that, and stuff. So I never stopped writing. But that's been a huge influence musically for me. Is it's encouraged me to write and inspired me to write. So
That's really cool.
yeah,
I will say, as far as like the orchestral stuff, I've definitely gotten into more of that because of you, Nick. I know, like
oh,
when we first
that's
started
cool.
hanging out, I remember I think it was around the time one of the Forza Horizon games come out, and you'd told me about making a playlist or you'd made a playlist to to play that game to, and you shared it with me, and it was just all like video game soundtrack or whatever. But I've I've always been into that stuff to some degree. Like it's hard to get past any of the John Williams stuff, whether it be Star Wars, Harry Potter, any of those like popular themes. Um, but definitely been getting into it more with I think like the original Destiny game like had a good soundtrack. Um, obviously the Halo games. Uh,
Halo 2.
yeah, for sure.
That
Oh,
the,
Halo 2. That's a great call out. Sorry,
it was like
Brandon.
it was like multiple discs. I feel like it was like a 2 disc album.
Yeah,
It had so many. It had freaking like Breaking Benjamin and like Incubus. It had so many people on that. Steve Vai.
yeah. But then even to like even the more orchestral stuff that was made for Fallout and Skyrim, like
Mm.
both of those games, I'm like for Fallout, I'm the radio music's like totally separate thing, but just the orchestral stuff for that like sets a tone no matter like what part of the map you're on. Like it definitely sets the tone for each of those areas. Um, but yeah, I've definitely gotten into it more. Since we've been friends. Um, but I think as far as like if there was like one specific song or piece that like really jump started like my interest into it more was the theme song for The Mandalorian. Like I've heard so many different like I've heard so many different takes on that, so many different versions, but it's definitely been one that's gotten me into it more.
Really cool.
I've also like um, another thing that's helped is one of the podcasts I watch is Play Watch Listen with Lana Pierce and Austin
Mhm.
Wintory, Mike Bithell and Troy Baker, and there for a while Troy Baker and Austin Wintory had like their own side podcast where Austin Wintory is just going through like all the different movie soundtracks with Troy Baker and just like pointing out different references in pop culture, like how things are connected or like how things were made, and that's been one thing that's helped me get into it a lot more too.
Yeah, Austin Wintory. That's a great shout out for those in the chat. That's Austin Wintory did the soundtrack to Journey, the video game Journey. It's on PlayStation, and God, there's two Abzu. and there's another couple. I can't remember what they are, but he's a great,
Yeah.
really great composer. I think he's done some movie soundtracks now.
He
Um,
he's done some Netflix shows, I think, and
mhm.
then I know he did like the side scroller Assassin's Creed games. Did like one of the most recent Aliens video games. I think the most recent thing he's did though was he actually did the soundtrack for Lego Fortnite, which I was surprised. But
Nice. Well, that's an interesting one for him.
yeah,
Yeah, I've listened to the Journey soundtrack a lot. That's a great one when you're just trying to. I have like here's the thing. Like I can't work if there's lyrics, like or write anything if there's words. But if there's just music, it doesn't mess me up. But if I hear dialogue and stuff, I have the hardest time focusing. So, but yeah, that's a great soundtrack.
I swear I think the soundtracks for Final Fantasy VII and Crisis Core have like been big too.
Yes.
Like big part of the
Bro,
reason why I've
Uh-huh.
gotten into those.
when you get
Yes.
to the price of freedom, there's a song on that soundtrack called "The Price of Freedom," and it if I needed to like trigger tears and I needed to do it fast, I just play that. Like
Yeah,
it starts with like kind of an orchestra and then it comes into like a rock band and it's just so good. It doesn't need words. It's like one of the only songs that's like speaks without speaking to me. I don't know.
yeah. I,
Brandy in the chat mentioned a great. Sorry to interrupt you, but I just saw
Oh, you're
this
good.
comment. Cloud Atlas. I don't know if y'all have seen that movie, but that has one of the
I
most like
tried.
beautiful. It's a hard watch for a lot of people, and it's I don't enjoy it as much as I did when I first saw it, but the music, there's some incredible music in it. But yeah, that's a great call out.
for
Hey, let me ask you real quick. Have y'all heard of this band Safety Suit? Y'all ever heard them?
yeah, it's been a while. That's what like early mid 2000s something like that.
Yeah,
The last
yeah.
time
That's
I
just
heard
another
them.
one I thought of where I was like, oh, I gotta mention Safety Suit. Um,
Might I feel like it sounds kind of familiar, but I don't know.
oh God, oh, I gotta tell you this story before I forget, guys. Paramore. Have I told you this? Have I told you
Probably
that?
not.
God, who was their guitarist or bassist? He
Josh
had
Farrell,
like, was he brown haired? That's all I need to know. Was he like blondish brown hair? And I don't know. It
blondish
was back.
bass player.
Yeah.
He had the cool hair and the beard.
Yeah, get this. So,
Yeah.
um,
Kanan, what's
he,
his name? Kanan said, "Tell me."
let me
Paramore's
see.
her
Hold on,
favorite
we gotta
band.
figure this out. What's what's
Uh,
uh what's his what's his last name?
Kanan, what's the old bass player's name from Jeremy?
Hold on. Sorry, guys, I just derailed this.
I was gonna say
No,
they're
you're fine.
for the most
Whenever
part
Bear
we
they're
with
said
me
we were
guitar
gonna
here.
do a music
players.
podcast, I just considered it to all be derailed
Yeah.
because this is we're gonna be like, oh, and this.
I was gonna say I think mostly their guitar players stayed the same. It's mainly been the drummer that's been
They had
cycled in and
another
out.
guitar player that was the first one to leave, and then the drummer left with him, and then the bass player was the last person to leave, and she still has the original rhythm guitarist and her,
So
and the drummer came back. Taylor York is the one that's been there the whole time.
yeah,
Um, and
Jeremy Davis was
Zach
one of them, and
Zach
then
Farrow's the drummer that left and came back. His brother Josh used to play guitar, but him and Haley had a falling out, and then
Well, I have to figure out which guy it was.
yeah,
But here,
Jeremy
uh,
Davis and Josh Farrow were the two bigger ones. There's been a few
yeah,
like touring guitarists,
see,
but
this would have been one of the very first. Let's just see here.
it's
Uh,
probably one of them. What
uh,
did he do?
this guy
What did
looks.
he do?
Yeah, well, he did tell me. He told me to shut up in church one time. So funny story. Okay, so we
Fuck
went
that guy.
to. Uh,
He's not even in the band anymore, anyways. He sucks.
when I say shut up, he might have said be quiet or something like that because he's a little bit older than me. But we went to a church called Bethel Chapel in Middle Tennessee. This is a long time ago, man. And like I probably was 7 or 8 years old or something like that, maybe younger. But we went to it was kind of a mega church. But we went there, and Pastor Ronnie, I believe was his name, was the children's pastor, right? So anyway, he was great and it was hilarious, and like they'd have the kids sessions. It was actually a lot of fun. I remember his son was in there, and he was older than me, and he would help out with keeping things going and stuff with the classes and all that. But anyway, I didn't realize this, but Pastor Ronnie started doing like tours to like visit churches and stuff like that. So I'm like 17 years old, and he comes to our church, and this is a small church, different church than Bethel. He comes and visits and stuff. We're talking with him. And I'm like, man, I remember when you were at Bethel, and like you did this little jokes with this puppet, and he would do like ventriloquism with this puppet and teach things, and it was really fun, and it was really funny, and it's great. And he's like, yeah, and he's like, and then he goes, yeah, something. I said, I think I remember your son. And he's a little older than me. He's like, yeah, yeah. He goes, he's in a band now. He's in this band Paramore, and they're doing awesome things. And I'm standing there with like 3 or 4 of my friends, and all our jaws just dropped. And they're like, what? He's in like, so yeah, he was like, yeah, yeah, you guys know him. And we're like, it was the biggest band in the world at the time. So anyway, I'm like, so we went to church with this not only, a member of Paramore, but also their dad was my children's pastor. So anyway, our minds were blown, and it's really fun, really funny.
Wild.
So just a fun story. I think I told someone in our group, right, about this, but anyway, it was wild. So thanks for letting me share that.
So
It was
cool.
really funny. Yeah.
He told you to shut up though? Is that just
I was
something like
talking,
one of your things
no,
you remember about the guy when you were younger?
I remember talking when I shouldn't have been, and I happened to be sitting next to his son, Pastor Ronnie's son, which is the guy from Paramore, apparently. And I think he was like, don't stop, stop talking. You're not supposed to be talking right now. Like, I was in the middle of the sermon or whatever the heck you want to call it. So, and I just remember being like, head down. But I decided it was a fun way to introduce how.
Yeah.
I know, but yeah.
Did he hurt you?
Yeah, where did he touch you? Anyway, but that's my fun story with that. So.
Ken said, "What's Pastor Ronnie's last name?"
That's why I was trying to get the last name to the. I can
That's
tell
funny.
you if I know the last name of the guy, but we'll figure it out. I'm having trouble multitasking over here.
That's awesome.
The last time I saw this guy as the pastor was more than 15 years ago now, so it's a little blurry.
Earlier you mentioned like the need to like if we, like how we listen to music, if it's something that has to like always be present, you always want to listen to music all the time or whatever. I was gonna say like I remember mostly in high school and late middle school. I remember getting an MP3 player in like probably 7th or 8th grade and having this little blue MP3 player that I could fit like 22 songs on or something. It didn't have much memory on it, but I remember like cycling using LimeWire, FrostWire, Supernova, whatever it was, like to change out the songs all the time. And then whenever I got into high school, I remember getting like switching to a CD player more, and then just like keeping CDs with me in my backpack and wearing big baggy pants that my CD player would fit in my pocket, and I would run the cord up my shirt and be in my hoodie and have the earbuds in. But like walking around for like maybe 3 years straight with the same CD player in my pocket every day, always having to listen to music. Like I listened to music at any point that I could all the time. And I've always loved music, but I think once I really started working in retail, and more specifically started working at Hot Topic, where music is omnipresent and all the time, constant. Like I would enjoy music while I was at work, and then whenever I got in the car to leave, I drive in silence. And I did that for years. Like I hit a certain point where I was like, okay, I just need like peace and fucking quiet, just like turn the noise off for a minute, and it was like the only way to relax. So like now I've gotten to a point to where like music is almost like a dessert, or like it's a treat thing. I can't listen to music all the time anymore because I burned myself out on a lot of things. Like one of my favorite bands will put out a new song and I'll listen to it 20 fucking times, and then I won't listen to music for like 2 weeks. um but like nowadays I listen to music in doses. I'm just kind of like pick back up, or if I get like kind of like the wind's blowing me one direction, or I want to like be nostalgic or check out something new, I'll listen to something. But I have to like go through waves of listening to music. I can't do it all the time now. And I feel like retail kind of ruined me on that, because it was just always on in the background. And like closing the store at night, the first thing we would do is turn that fucking music off so I can think about counting. Like, so just seeing how it evolved was, for myself, like I used to like always have to have music on, and then I got to a point where it's like, yeah, now I don't like to listen to music all the time. But I mean, I still love all the music that I've ever loved, but can't, I don't know. More of a,
Yeah.
I listen to books and podcasts now, and that's how I would rather, instead of listening to, 3 to 4 minute songs over and over, I'd rather listen to something that I feel like's giving me some sort of progression in something, or keeps my attention on it, I guess. Um, so yeah, like now a lot
Yeah.
of the energy is audiobooks, podcasts.
I'm definitely a lot of the same way where like I'll completely wear something out for like a week or two. Like I'll get in a
Hmm.
phase, go through specific artists, whatever, and then yeah, I need a break where it's a podcast or just silence or something.
Hmm.
But
I'm okay with silence, and it's a good thing to be okay with. And I
I've
didn't learn how to be okay with it for a long time.
yeah, it's definitely something more recent that I've been doing like to the point where like I'll get in the car and leave work. I mean, I only live 15 20 minutes away from work, but like to the point now like I'll get in the car and make it home before I realize I didn't turn anything on.
Yeah, that was me driving home from Chattanooga all the time. And then like I remember like Kanan would go hang out at the mall like while I was at work sometimes, and she would ride up there with me, and she's like, "Why don't you play any music?" And I'm like, "This is quiet time. We
Yeah.
don't we don't listen to music on the way to work, where my job is working around music all the time."
At a certain point, it's just noise, right? Like music can be noise, but I think like I still listen. It's funny because I listen to a lot of music, but I do it more to like isolate myself, right? Like if I'm writing or working, like when I was working from home, 8, 9, 10 hours a day, like if my headphones went on and I'm like they got to be noise canceling, and like I would just have it put on a like songs playlist on Spotify, and just not like that would be my office for me. It would just shut me out because I get just so distracted and stuff. So it helps keep me calm and like keeps me focused. Long like I said, as long as there's not any lyrics, but I still do that. It just cuts out all the distraction and stuff like that. So yeah, we got a question in the chat, I think, from Brandy. What does it say? If you could instantly play any, or no, sorry, if you could instantly know how to play any instrument you can't now, what would it be?
My mind says guitar, but my heart says drums.
I'm gonna say guitar. I can casually play to the point where I shouldn't even say that I can play. Like I know how to play like a song or two, and I know where certain notes are. But if I could be fluent in guitar, I would be so happy. But I haven't been able to like commit the patience to it.
I mean, I've learned to play guitar a little bit, so enough to where I understand it. But there's something about drums that like I've always loved percussion, but I do not have the rhythm for it. Like it's just it's always been a mystery to me, and that's why I would because in my mind that's like the hardest one to learn. Would at least for me, and that's why
It's
I
a
would.
language.
Yeah, I would
It's
definitely. That would be the one that's like instantly. I would learn that one.
Drums would definitely be a close second to me because all my favorite musicians are drummers. Like, I mean, the
It,
drums are like the first thing that like if it
Mhm.
drums and a stupidly cool riff like will take me out of what just happened and make me go, what the fuck just happened? And got to rewind to like hear some random drum fill or some I
dude,
don't know. Beartooth got a lot of really sexy riffs on this last album that are just like, God.
dude, you bring up like Avenged
Um,
Sevenfold, and that was probably like I'd heard Backcountry. I think probably through like a Madden video game, but the song that really stood out to me was "Blinded in Chains" just for the drum beat. That was it. I was like, I love this shit.
This shit
Yeah,
was so stupid. Yeah, I still like that. That's one of those albums. City of Evil is one of those albums that's like that's a desert island. Like if I could only own three albums, that makes it in the top three just by default. Like that is what I would say is a perfect album for my music taste is City of Evil, Vince Sevenfold. And like I meant to mention that earlier when I was talking about like the path of music, but Avenged Sevenfold took over like that. It's like I feel like I have to say they're my favorite band at this point, just because I've spent so long like committed to the journey of following them, and uh, I mean I remember like my mom would always like come in, like I feel like I remember like a few times she'd be like she'd come in my room, I'd be asleep, wake me up in the middle of the night or it's early in the morning or whatever. She'd come in, she'd be like, hey, I remember when like this is not music related, but it's leading to it. Who was the driver, the NASCAR driver that died? Jeff Gordon,
no, Dale Earnhardt.
Dale Earnhardt. Was it Dale Earnhardt?
Yeah,
Okay, I remember her telling me like coming in my room at one point and saying like Dale Earnhardt died, and I was like, oh, that sucks. And then like coming in my room, months later, and like some other big person died, and I'm like, oh man, that sucks. And then I remember when my mom came in my room and she goes, was do you know who Jimmy or James Sullivan is? And I was like, yeah. She's like, is he? I was like, yeah, it's the Rev. And she was like, yeah, he died. And I remember like just being like, what? But I don't know, the disbelief of that, and that like being like the first like famous person ever that like whenever they died it like hurt. It felt like I lost a family member just because I was like I don't know, just so into everything about that band. And he was my favorite because of the behind the scenes videos on City of Evil and all the stupid antics that they would get into, and he just had a great sense of humor and was somehow this also this incredible drummer that still is one of the top drummers of all time, even with the music that we have now. But yeah, I've got to like Avenged Sevenfold is like 60 to 70% of my music interest as far as like just being growing up and how much time I've spent listening to them.
yeah, for sure. Well, and I mean, in the same vein, like, okay, so you mentioned City of Evil being like on like one of your deserted island albums. Like a lot of newer music, like it's hard for a lot of newer music to like break that glass ceiling of like albums I hold in that regard. But I'll say one for me that like I would put on there now at this point is "Take Me Back to Eden" by Sleep Token. Like
Yeah.
that one's definitely got to be in there at this point. And like they
Yeah.
caught on so fast, but it's been so good.
They're just doing it right. They've got a whole like I don't know, they tapped into something that is organic and uh I don't know, it's very good. Sleep Token's incredible.
like for me,
Um,
instrument. Back to the instrument question would be probably cello. That'd be cool to be able to play.
Cool. Is cello like the stand-up thing?
Mm-hmm.
It like stands on the ground in front of you and you sit. Um.
I think so. I hope so, 'cause that's what I
Okay.
think it is.
Okay. It's like
Every time
four
I
strings,
hear
almost like a bass, like a standing bass,
Yeah,
it
right?
it's like
is
that percussion violin,
every
right?
every time I hear cello, I think of Jack Black in School of Rock when he goes, "You see the cello? You turn on the side, cello, you got a bass." I think of that every time.
That's a that ties out.
Yeah.
Um.
Yeah, violin would be cool too. I saw someone said, a couple people in the chat said, I think violin. I've heard that's
Teo,
one of the
I
hardest.
cannot, I cannot and will not believe that you haven't listened to Sleep Token, but CKY, he brought up CKY. That's a big part, dude. That takes me back to like Viva La Bam and
Oh wow.
that era.
That's probably like their song, like 96 Quite Bitter Beings, is probably like the standout song from the third Tony Hawk's game for me.
Hmm.
Hmm.
See, I always love the Tony Hawk soundtracks, but I need to go back and like look at what songs are on there because I know all the songs that are at least on two, but I don't remember going down rabbit holes for each band. Um, Something I have a problem with is being like I have such a huge, like we all do, just such a huge library of music that I love that I can't remember how much of shit that I've listened to. Um, when I was talking to my mom earlier, she was like, there was this one person you used to listen to. She's like, I can't remember what they were. But it was and she was like, Evelyn, like trying to say this name. We eventually came down to, it was Imogen Heap. And because I remember being obsessed with that hide and seek song for so long.
Yeah, everybody was.
Dude, so good.
Yeah. So, uh, Barrett, you said that Avenged Sevenfold is or was your favorite band. Would you say that's still true?
In a certain time, yes. If I was holding up certain albums by them to like what I would consider my favorite band now, and holding up like my favorite
Hmm.
albums of both, I would have a really hard time because Beartooth is probably my favorite band. Um, but like I don't know, it'd be between Avenged Sevenfold and Beartooth. But if I had to put City of Evil up against Disgusting, it's like can I just
Ooh,
have them both?
that's tough.
Can I just have them both?
City of
It'd be
Evil's
so.
good, but Disgusting just like got such a like raw magnetism to it that like
Hmm.
it's hard to
That
hard to get past that.
It's like that's the album, especially Sick, because I'm gonna include Sick and Disgusting
Yeah.
together because it all should have been on the same thing. But um, if I could say music saved my life ever at a point in my life, it was during the era of Sick and Disgusting. I was going through really hard personal times in that time, and I remember the aggression of that album coming out being like perfect and exactly what I needed to like this guy's saying all the stuff I'm feeling. Like, yes. And it's like growing up with his other bands cuz like back to like LimeWire and MySpace music. I don't know how much credit. I probably owe a lot of credit to a lot of music that I listened to MySpace, which I failed to mention earlier. And, you know,
Yeah. What was your top
profile songs
what was
and
your top 7 or top 5, whatever it was?
I don't remember. I think top eight, like your
That
friends.
now there
I
was
think
like
Jesus Christ
a
was number one for a long time
yeah.
because I realized you could add him on Facebook and make him your number one, and I totally did.
Now I just remember like having like setting up your
Taking Back
profile
Sunday.
and like whatever song you had is like your theme, just like it was almost like a
Mm,
status symbol almost.
It was the best feature, dude. Like
yeah.
that was so great, and that you
Hmm.
could just have it autoplay. when you got
Yep.
to the page. So like, this is my theme song. Man, I remember putting an obscene amount of time into my Fight to Facebook page
Yeah,
back in
same.
the day.
I thought I knew coding. If only I'd have stuck with it.
Dude, I was sure I did. I was sure until like a week ago that I knew what coding was because of MySpace. Then you realize, yeah, red with parentheses or whatever that doesn't count.
Yeah.
But Brandon, what about you, man? What's a do you have a favorite?
It's tough because I mean, it's one of those things like depending on when you ask me, I could probably tell you like at least 3 to 4 different answers. Um, I mean, I'm with Barrett on Avenged Sevenfold and Beartooth. But I would also throw Breaking Benjamin in there. Um, and then probably Shinedown just because of like when I got into
Mm,
them.
yeah.
I've probably seen them in concert more than anybody else. Like Beartooth and Breaking Benjamin are probably the only two that come close. But they're the only band I've actually did meet and greets for. Um, they're the only band I've got tattoos of so far. I definitely plan on other ones, but yeah, those four are probably like if you could ask me at any time, I'd probably tell you it's one of those. But it's hard to say because, like I said, I do hold Shinedown in that high regard, but it was also earlier, so I've had like more time to listen to more music since then, to where they not that I love them any less, but they've definitely been knocked down a peg just because of like the other stuff I've found. And so to that point, maybe Breaking Benjamin because around the time I was getting into them is a time when I was starting to pay attention to the lyrics more and the way that they write their songs. It there's obviously a meaning and a poetry to it, but it's definitely more vague and like open to interpretation. And yeah, like right around the time I was getting into them, I was almost analyzing every song to a point. It's like, okay, what exactly does this line mean, or what do they mean here? And and a lot of it written in a way that could be taken multiple ways. And so I think they were probably one of the bigger ones that on that path of discovery, like that band's probably what led me to stuff like Chevelle and then Tool
Oh,
and then
Chevelle's good.
Chevelle.
and then like I
Very good
said,
mention.
yeah, love them too. Um,
The Red. That's what I think. I think of Chevelle and I think of the Red.
oh,
And
there's
then,
too many to name. I
Yes.
like
yeah.
all these bands like with Breaking Benjamin, Chevelle. I couldn't even tell you what my favorite song is by them because it would depend on just like
What about
what day it is.
in that vein? Did you ever listen to Bullet from a Valentine? Was that ever like?
Oh
Because
yeah, for
they were.
sure.
I forget that they were huge for me. Like,
They
um,
they were big for a little while. Actually, like that was one of those core memories too, where I can remember the first time I heard them. I was with my brother. He was getting like one of his first tattoos, so we were in a tattoo parlor, and I remember the artist playing music in the background, and like I think the acoustic version of Tears Don't Fall came on the radio, and I was
nice.
just in love. Um, yeah, they were a big one for a while. Like uh, yeah, their first 2 or 3 albums were really good. Haven't listened to them as much since then though. Um,
They had. I've got a core memory with them. Like, 'cause they were like one of my band. Like, along with Avenged Sevenfold. Whenever I used to skate, that was like my motivation. Music was listening to Avenged Sevenfold, Bullet from a Valentine, stuff like that. And Bullet had a song called Hand of Blood, and I remember like being obsessed
yeah,
with that song
that was a good one.
and fighting this ledge that I was trying to ollie off. Man, I probably did it 20, 30 times, and it was hurting. And then I remember just getting in the zone, listening to that song, and like the hook starting, and I like pushed at the gap with like the hook going, and finally ollied it, and like just kept singing the song. Like I've got both earbuds in, kept singing the song full ollie, and like finally hit this gap. And I remember just that feeling of like that was the song that helped me conquer that gap finally.
Nice.
Yeah, I've got feelings like that towards Taking Back Sunday. What was the album that had Make
Tell
Damn
all your
Sure on
friends.
it? Yeah.
Oh,
What a
no, was that Make Damn Sure was on
Louder Now?
What's It Feel Like? Louder Now. That's the best album in my opinion.
I
Everyone
think,
says Tell All Your Friends, but Louder Now.
dude. You know
Uh,
what's funny is
What's it
they.
feel
Yeah, you're
like to
right.
be a ghost?
Yeah, Ghost
Oh,
2020. Yeah, that whole album was excellent. And I
yeah.
remember you talk about core memories. I remember every time I hear any song from that album, which just love, Make Damn Sure. Even though Make Damn Sure
Make
got
Damn Sure.
so, I don't want to harp on this too much, but like, it's annoying when you like love a song, but then they just play it to death, and it's still a great song, but you're just so sick of it, and it's like, every idiot with ears loves it. But Make Damn Sure never stopped being a great song.
Oh,
Like that's
still
one for me
top
where I
tier.
was like, you turn that on and it gets you pumped. But dude, I associate that album with Resident Evil 4, the GameCube version, because when I was working at that camp, we would go to my friends on our days off, and he had just all the game consoles, and we had that album playing while it was still new and just on repeat. So like, I can't play Resident Evil 4 without thinking of Taking Back Sunday, and vice versa. So
That's awesome.
yeah,
I've
yeah, but
I've got albums like that that make me think of certain games whenever I would like, because now
mhm.
it would drive me insane to try and listen to music and play a game. Like I can't do it.
Oh yeah, me too, man.
But back in the day, bro, I mentioned earlier, like I used to listen to a lot of pop like before I discovered rock music, and Usher's album with Confessions on it. I don't remember. I don't know what the album was called.
I think it was
Uh,
Confessions.
it probably was. Um, that paired with Pokemon Coliseum
Nice,
is is like
good
a
mix.
core memory for me. And I think about it like it doesn't sound like me at all. It doesn't even feel like me. But like if I heard that right now, I would just think of like playing through that game. Those two things are forever burned together in my head.
Grant, you have any memories like that you can think of?
Uh, no, I mean, I guess around the 360 era, and I guess even the regular Xbox era, like I couldn't do it now, but there was a time where because on those consoles you could burn music
All your
onto
music
it.
on it.
So
Hmm.
I would turn on after like after I would beat the campaigns for Halo, I would turn on Breaking Benjamin or something and just like run through levels. Um, but yeah, I don't know if there's like I'd have to think on it a little bit more, but I don't think there's a specific moment that
Yeah.
I would tie to
Uh,
anything like that. Um,
the Xbox and music was especially the original Xbox, how you could put your music on the console and then like say go play Grand Theft Auto San Andreas and you're riding around and you could listen to all your music that was on the Xbox in the car,
yep, yeah, that was
like while
nice.
you were driving around, like it was your radio.
I didn't. I don't remember that. That's awesome.
There were
I
there were
remember doing that.
there were a few of those games like that. Like I used to play a lot of wrestling games. I mean, I still do to some degree, but there was a point like in that era. I think 360 and maybe PS3. I can't remember if you could do it, but you could actually upload music onto the system and then use that as like an entrance theme for your wrestler.
Mm, that's cool.
That's an awesome feature. Yeah.
I I remember buying music videos. Like I owned all of the Avenged Sevenfold
Oh
music videos
wow.
on the 360.
iTunes. Oh, you could
No,
buy them on the
no,
360.
the
Wow.
with Microsoft points, and they were like
That's so
like
wild, man. Yeah.
120 Microsoft whatever. But like buying I had all the Avenged Sevenfold music videos. I had CDs burned onto my Xbox 360, and I remember listening. And this probably has something to do with why it's the only Avenged Sevenfold song that I don't like. It's the only one I'll like really skip if it's in the old stuff. But "Scream" by Avenged Sevenfold red ringed my Xbox 360. It's the only time I ever witnessed.
Oh, it was Gears of War
The
for
only
me.
time I ever witnessed a red ring of death was listening to that fucking song on my 360. So I was like, okay, no more playing music on the Xbox. Luckily, it was just like a power brick issue, and it just like had overheated once. Turn it off, let it cool off, turn it back on. It was fine. So it didn't totally fuck the console, but that is definitely a big memory of music in the Xbox.
Hey, pain will make you remember, man.
Yeah,
Hey, something
just
that might
that.
be fun. What's that?
I was just that gut sinking red ring and being
Oh
like,
man.
it happened to me. How could it happen? It was in those days. It was either
That's so
that
funny.
or like if you accidentally like teetered your 360 and it put those laser
Dude,
rings on your
man,
disc.
let's talk about that for a minute. I was given a 360 and when I was younger and I did that exact thing with Gears of War. Except so I had it standing up and I realized, oh, that's probably not good for it to stand up. So while it's running the disc, put it
Yeah,
back. Oh, the
makes the
game's not
worst
working.
sound of all time.
Oh,
Like, what
dude,
the
I
fuck just
took it
happened?
out. It's a horrible noise. And you're like,
Yeah,
I'm like, oh yeah, I just busted that game. It did not work after that.
that's one of those memes that like kids will never understand. You know, like and it's just a picture of
yeah,
like double laser burns on your disc.
we're the reason it's so good now is because of the pain we endured.
Yeah,
And there's just nothing, dude. I remember GameStop was making bank back then for that $3 protection
resurfacing.
charge. That dude, yeah. Well,
Oh
not just
yeah,
to
I
get
was thinking
that
about Game Crazy
replacement.
doing the game resurfacing because they used to have disc
That
resurfacers
too.
too, where you could
Yeah,
like buff them out.
I forgot about that. Hey, something real quick as we're talking, I thought this might be cool. I was gonna ask you guys what your like dream mixtape would be, right? With like all your favorite songs on it. So maybe just think about that as we're talking. I've got a couple I'm just kind of writing down on the side as we have conversation. But yeah, like if you were to make a mixtape, I was thinking about saying like what I was gonna ask you guys what your favorite song was. And I was like, there's not a chance in hell we're gonna get a clear answer on that. But I do know that we could probably say what some of your favorite songs are, right? Um, and go through that. So what we can loop back
This is
around to
something we
that
could go on
but then.
forever on this
Yeah.
topic, bro. I don't know if we could ever
I
cover all of it.
I would need like a hard
Yeah,
limit
that's
of
true.
like
We won't.
15. I would need like a hard limit like 10, 15, 20 songs
12 songs.
before I could,
Let,
yeah.
12
let's
songs.
I will throw
before
like
that.
one blanket one out there. Like
Barrett's intimidated by this. This one.
any
That
anytime
question is
somebody
so
asks,
big.
anytime somebody asks, like if somebody were to ask me my favorite song, the one go to I always tell them is "Welcome Home" by Coheed and Cambria.
That's a good
Like
one.
Oh man, that is a good one.
it's probably actually not my most favorite, but it's the one that comes to mind every time somebody asks.
Let's just talk about this then. Forget going back to it. Like just favorite songs and why. Like so. Like why is "Welcome Home" in your words on that list, man? I mean, it just sounds awesome, but
Yeah, I don't know. It's just like the full package
Epic.
of what. Yeah, it's like the full
yeah,
package of what like a
so heavy.
rock song is. Yeah, I just
Mhm.
Dude, oh, I
it's
gotta
just
say
perfect.
that song. There's a lyric. You're right. It's so good, but it tells such a good story. There's one lyric in that is so awesome that like I think about probably like once a month, every month of my life. And he says, and I could be wrong, so don't like crucify me for this. But one lyric is, if you really loved me, you would have ignored my wish, or you would have ignored my will.
Yeah.
And like just that lyric basically told the story that the character or him in the song had asked someone he loved to do something, because they wanted him to. But it's like if they had really loved him, they would have said, "Hell no, I won't do it." Like at least that's how I interpreted that lyric, and I thought like that's such a cool lyric. And he was coming back at it, and the song had this heavy feeling of being almost vindictive towards that person.
Well,
saying, hey, if you really love me, you would have ignored that I asked you to do that thing, you
I,
know. So thought that was cool.
I could probably go through like every line of that song and like have something
Yeah,
to say.
just
But
totally dissect it. That's
but
awesome.
funny backstory is like Claudio, the lead singer,
Yeah.
um, when he wrote that song, like he actually wrote it about the woman he's married to right now, and like
Mm.
they were like broken up at the time, and he was living with his
She loves
parents.
that.
Yeah, they were like broken up at the time, and he was living with his parents, and he said he literally like wrote that song like one morning while he's like sitting in his underwear,
Mhm.
just like sulking around the house. And to that for that
That's
now
awesome.
to be like one of their most famous songs, it's definitely got to be a funny like relationship conversation at one. It had
Yeah.
had to have been at one point, but
Yeah, I'm sure
but
it
it's
paid for plenty
also
of fools,
yeah, I'm sure.
you
But
know.
I mean, but it's also like the way their music's written. Like most of it's like concept album wise, where like it's written to the story of like a comic book that he writes.
Hmm.
So it was always like under the guise of like, no, this fits into the story I'm writing.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
that's a cool thing about Kohi too, is that yeah, it's all lore. Like this super
Yeah.
lore dense story that's being told. And I didn't once you get that, it makes a lot more sense. But until you're like, what the hell? Like Favorite House Atlantic, I was like, what is happening in this song? Um, but yeah, they're great. I'm glad you mentioned them.
yeah, I couldn't I
Um,
One
couldn't
song.
get by with like
I'll
not
go ahead.
mentioning. I couldn't get by with not mentioning them because they've definitely been one of the. I heard them. I've caught music videos and stuff like back when their first album or two came out, but I haven't really gotten into them like deep until the past 4 or 5 years. Mainly because of Austin and
yeah, that's what
Yeah.
I was gonna
among other
say. Like,
things. But
I remember them from Rock Band. Like Kanan said in the chat, like that's how I know them is because that was the best song to play on Rock Band. And then getting, you know, whenever I met Austin, his favorite band's always been Coheed. Like since and just learning through him. Whenever we lived together, like 5 or 6 years ago, they had a new album coming out, and I was trying to like get hyped up to listen to it. And then he actually had their comic books, and I remember like finally on like getting to put the pictures and stuff to like some of the songs. So I remember revisiting their first album with like Second Stage, Turbine Blade, and Everything
Yes.
Evil, and like really falling in love with those songs, especially Everything Evil. That's probably my favorite Coheed song.
Hmm.
But
I'll write that down.
um, getting uh, just listening to it and reading a comic and trying to like line things up, and then having like Austin's like explanation of things and stuff, like I
Mhm.
really gave me more of an appreciation of them than I ever thought I would have. And because I never really latched onto him. Like I said, I liked Welcome Home, but at that point I started getting into like their older stuff. But now they've got, it's not their newest album, but it's the one right before this, the most recent album. But that album front to back I absolutely loved. And I got to follow it like whenever it released and get hyped up with Austin about it. And like now that album has a really special place to me. I wish I could remember what it was freaking called, but good stuff.
You guys remember this is this is a song that I listen to and I have no shame about it. But when Final Fantasy 13 launched, there was a really um, sappy R&B song by Leona Lewis called like Your Hands, and it's freaking awesome. Like I have to find the trailer, but it's so good, especially with that trailer. It got me so hyped for Final Fantasy 13. Um,
I don't remember that.
I think it's called Your Hands, but definitely check that one out. Um, like if this is our infinite mixtape that we're just throwing stuff out, like all these songs. Now, what about here's an artist I hadn't mentioned. This is a recent one, but this is probably my favorite artist, and it's Hosier. Um, I don't know about his newer. albums and stuff like that, but the album that had Take Me to Church on it, I like wore that album out. Like to me, that guy's got like some of the best lyrics I've ever heard. Like it just, it's like when I heard that song, I was like, this is like just right up my alley. Like all the things I like about music. What do you guys think of? What do you guys think of that artist?
From what I've heard, he's
I
really
know that
good.
song.
Yeah.
I might know other things if I heard them, but I'm not like the name doesn't bring a lot to the front of my mind. But I remember "Take Me to Church."
Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
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 I've heard quite a bit. That's probably the only one I could actually name, but for the most part, I've liked what I've heard. That song gets me, not in a negative way, but like it gets me just because of the lyrical content, what he actually means. Um,
Yeah,
I'm
I'm not sure.
okay. Uh, I don't want to say anything controversial, but I'd be curious for you to look into that and then hear your opinion based on your upbringing.
Yeah, I've heard some of the loose or the theories on that content. And I suspect there's something sacrilegious maybe in there, but yeah,
Yeah.
I I don't know about you guys. Sometimes I don't look into lyrics for that reason. I go, you know what? I don't really want to know what some of this means. Like to me, it like disenchants it to a degree for me, but other times I'm like, oh no, like I'm super curious.
If I'm really invested in the band or the song, like I'll pay more attention to it. But like one-offs kind of like that, or like, I mean, other songs that I really like that like, I just like because I like the music. I I try not to go that deep on just anything. But
Like I said, with Breaking Benjamin, like that's what mainly got me into them is like wanting to know exactly what some of the things meant, and to the point where like I was never like a gatekeeper or a edge lord or anything about it, but like that was always like one thing that stuck out to me as far as like for instance their song "I Will Not Bow." A lot of
Mhm.
people use that on like workout playlists and like just to pump you up, but like the lyrical content is like of what they actually mean is like the exact opposite. Like I would akin it more to like at the time like I kind of associate that song with Heath Ledger's Joker from Dark Knight because actually what he's like saying in the song fits more along those lines of like I don't like the one line for instance I don't want to change the world, I want to leave it colder is like definitely like this is a song of a villain or at least somebody that's like conflicted to that end. But yeah, like song interpretation's always been a big thing for me. And then, like I'd say that's probably why Breaking Benjamin's my favorite because I can trace them back to like when I started looking into more of it to where like I went from like I said them to like Chevelle to Tool and then like more recently into like Spirit Box and Sleep Token of like trying to figure out exactly what they're saying.
let's interpret Tool songs.
Which one? Where do we start?
I don't even know if I've heard any Tool. I obviously know who
What?
Tool is, but I've like Tool. I couldn't tell you a song that I've
Hmm.
heard that I'd recognize.
Well, go ahead and put The Grudge on that list.
Okay, is The Grudge the album or the song?
It's the song.
Okay, you think I'll like it?
I hope so.
I think
What's a good? I
What's
mean, if
what's
they're gonna
uh,
show you if you're gonna go and be like, oh, what Tool song should I listen to? I would probably say like
Enema.
Vicarious, Enema, like yeah, Enema for sure.
My favorite's probably 46 and 2, but that's mainly because of
46
like
and
the
Eulogy.
end. Yeah.
Yeah.
Lyrically, I
Every
really
song.
like the pot, and then
Yeah. That's what I was starting to thought. Like to someone that's not listened to Tool, the most approachable songs are to me are like Vicarious, The Pot, um, definitely some stuff off of the 10,000 Days album.
Zombie Hog here said wrong, and it's
He was summoned. He
lateralis.
smelled Coheed, and
He
he
did.
did.
He did. I'm glad. I want him here.
Yeah,
I want him.
Oh,
Lateralis,
is
the
this that guy?
song, not the album. Yeah, Zombie Hog is awesome. He's right though. Lateralis, not the album as a whole, yes, but the song, 100% yes. That one's like that might be my The Grudge and Lateralis are probably my two favorite Tool songs if I could only pick two.
I wrote these down, all these down, so I'm gonna check them out.
Good.
The pot.
A
I think the
lot of
pot's
words
the
were
one I'll
just flung
start
at
with
you.
though.
Take it all in.
Yeah.
Um,
Prison
like
Star. That's an interesting name.
Rosetta Stoned. Yeah. Yeah, man. See, like this is where it goes with music. It's like I get so I'm like, yes, this. I just have so much love to give with so many songs and so many bands. It's like, oh man.
Yeah. What about Blue October? Did
Bro,
y'all like them?
They're pretty good.
yes.
They're good.
Yeah.
Uh,
That Hate Me
Hate Me.
has some of the best lyrics I think in any song ever.
Hate Me.
Like,
Razorblade. I don't know if you ever listened to that one. I think it was on my
no, write it down.
Razorblade was, I mean, it's dark, but that was probably my favorite, like, angsty Blue October song. That
You know,
Blue
it's funny
October
when
is what I would consider like mine and my mom's like we connect with Blue October and music. Like we both love them so much. That Foiled album is
yes, it's really good.
one of the best. That definitely goes on like I feel like I told Kanan that I wanted to make like a timeline video that's like going through my life timeline and just scrolling through it. And if I could find all the albums that hit me at high points and just like place them on a timeline, like I need to have the patience with like video editing like that, but like, cause I forget there's so much good music. There's so much and it's so all over the place. And it's like now I don't listen to as much music. So like my taste is kind of like funneled a little bit, but then I get reminded of things like that. You bring up Red Jumpsuit and Blue October. I'm like, bro, that's two albums that define my whole childhood.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm trying to think of others. It's amazing because I can never think of all these artists and songs when I'm trying to put together a playlist, like on Spotify. I'm like, what are some bands I know? And then you get in a conversation. You're like, oh my god, why don't I have that album?
Brand new, dude.
I couldn't tell you what a brand new song. Isn't that wild? Like,
Really?
yeah, and then that's
Jesus Christ.
okay. Yeah, yeah. Okay, good call out. That's one I have heard.
Yeah.
That was a good
Um,
song. What up? Uh huh. Go ahead.
bro, the Science Fiction is one of their albums.
Okay.
That album, it's I think it might be their last album. But that album at one point I remember being like at one point I was like this is my favorite album ever. It was so good. It's got a darker tone to it, but it's a certain vibe that's like if you're kind of feeling like a little like bummed out or whatever, like it was just something that was so like it was like an album that would just hold you and like it's like I understand.
Yeah.
But Brand New had uh, a lot of really good songs. Deja and Tendu is probably the most recognizable album from them. It's got the astronaut on it. It's like black to red. Um,
Do y'all like
yeah.
M83?
I haven't heard
You
of
know who
him.
they are?
Mm-mm.
Okay. They're like, God, I don't know how it's. They're like really easy listening, but I don't even know like what song. They're really good. That's the band or artist. You've heard their music, I'm sure, because had music in game trailers and stuff. And they've also done some music for movies. But they are one of my favorites. Um, it's kind of some of their songs have like 2 or 3 minutes of music before the lyrics even start, and then when the lyrics do start, it can just kind of be some like a single repeating lyric or something. but they're one I listen to a lot. Like I'm always game to listen to them. But yeah, it's one I check out.
How old were you whenever Headstrong by Trapt was your favorite song? No? Anybody?
At one point, it definitely was one of my favorite songs.
That Headstrong to Take You On song?
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
2002, 2001. So I was like 9, 10 years old.
I remember Grind was like one of my favorite movies growing up,
Oh,
and
God.
when that shit comes in at the end, oh my god!
Wasn't that song like in the trailer for Never Back Down or something?
I'm sure
Probably.
Remember that movie?
if
It's
there's
such a bro movie.
Probably.
It's such a bro song.
yeah,
Yeah,
You know
there
what I
so
mean?
for probably about like a 10 to 15-year period, like if there was like any fight scene like in any movie, it was probably on the
Mhm.
soundtrack.
Yeah. Expendables, any trailer. Yeah. Yeah, I have contempt for that. Like I have a hard time appreciating some of that. I have a hard time appreciating like some My Chemical Romance as well. I was like one of the things I asked you guys, like what's some songs that like it's not that you don't like it because it's like, people said it was stupid, but you like realized it was stupid. Like like sometimes when I think about My Chemical Romance, I'm like, okay, you're straight up trying to make us Tim Burton movie with some of these songs. Like I'm just like, I get it. You guys are really comfortable with like being emo and death and stuff. Like I get it, but like, part of me, I think part
I
of it's like that's how I feel about it a lot of the time now. I'm like, shut
I
up,
love My
like
Chemical
guys.
Romance. It's definitely a time period thing,
Hmm.
and like, I mean, whatever
I
their
just don't love all their music.
Three Cheers, was it
Three Cheers
Three
for
Cheers?
Sweet Revenge. Yeah.
Like that
Three Cheers for
album
Sweet
was.
Revenge. So good, like, and still one of like the best of its time.
Hmm.
But I remember when Black Parade came out
Yeah,
and
and that's kind of what I'm
absolutely
talking about.
loving every moment of it, and then now I go
Absolutely.
back and revisit it, and I'm like,
Yeah. They had
well,
some great songs on that album.
I
Like
still
they
love that
did.
whole
It's
album.
just, pardon?
I said I still love that whole album. Like Black
Yeah.
Parade's like the song is probably one of
Hmm.
those that was like overplayed, but like everything else like Cancer, Wolves, Dead, like that the rest of that album I love every bit of it.
it's like I still
Yeah.
love it and I know every friggin' word to it, but it's not. It's something I have a harder time revisiting as much as like stuff that's equally as nostalgic to me.
Okay. What
Uh,
about this though? So on the topic of My Chemical Romance, who agrees that I'm Not Okay is like the best music video ever? To me, it's still the best. The music video for I'm Not Okay, I Promise is like the best music video. I was like, where's the movie? What? I just watched this movie trailer. Where is the movie? Like, and I
Yeah, because
was
that's the one that
convinced
kept
that,
stopping, and there was like acting moments, right?
Yeah.
Like the
yeah.
song
Well,
would
and
pause, and then there's a whole like scene.
yes, that music video is just
Yeah,
stellar to
yeah, it was
me.
really good.
Yeah. Sorry,
Um,
Brandon, you were saying something.
boys,
I
I'm
don't think
sorry,
so.
I gotta go piss real quick. Y'all keep going. I will be right back.
Fair enough. The Kill. Oh yeah. I used
That's
to.
30 Seconds to Mars.
Yeah, I loved. I used to love him. I love that album, and that like I loved all the songs in that album. Then I don't know their newer stuff. I just lost me really quick. But yeah, the Kill the one in the hotel, like that was like The Shining.
I can't remember.
Let's see. I'm waiting for the chat to tell me, but they don't feel like it. I guess Kill Switch Engage.
Yeah, they were a good one.
Um,
I don't like their
I
newer
don't.
stuff. How like their lead singer Howard
What did they
Jones, like
sing?
The End of Heartache, My Curse. I'm drawing blanks, but
What
they
about I gotta ask
Rose of
Barrett
Sharon.
too when he gets back. What about Atreyu?
Yeah, they were good. I
Nick,
I love
you're
that.
speaking to my
Yes,
soul. You were
Atreyu,
speaking
what was
X's and
the song?
O's.
The song was on a
Uh,
Death Grip. Was it a Death Grip on yesterday? Was the album or the
Death Grip on
song?
yesterday. That was an album.
Okay, and there was a song on there. The Theft. Was it the Theft? Yes, and that was an awesome song.
When Two or
The
One
music,
is one of the best songs of all time.
I don't remember liking that song, but I can't remember what it sounded like.
Yeah,
I'll
it's
write
the
it
most
down.
shreddy. Yeah, write it down. When Two or One. Like,
One, two,
oh my God.
I loved Atreyu, but like around the time that they were popular, like the football team at the high school I went to wore out Becoming the Bull. Like it was used on like
That's
every
not.
like football highlight video, so it was kind of
Yeah,
ruined.
and that's not even one of the good ones.
No.
which
Um,
song?
Becoming the Bull. I think that was on the Death Grip on yesterday too. It was like
Yeah, I didn't like that song.
track two.
No, it was on Lead Cells and Paper Anchors.
That's right,
Mm.
the Red album. Um, I see Atreyu. I have a hard time like remembering albums because they were one of the bands that I discovered through LimeWire, something. I just downloading stuff that either I was told about or maybe someone gave me a mix CD with X's and O's on it. But X's and O's and Lip Gloss and Black were two of their earlier songs. I remember being obsessed with those, being an angsty little emo kid. Um,
Around that time,
and then,
I was into them, but I think I was more into the Used probably.
ooh, that's a good one. Can't not mention them. Holy shit!
No,
Oh,
they
the
were big.
used. How did we not mention them
The
sooner?
Bird and the Worm.
That's a really good call out. The used. We got to pee again.
No, I had to close my door before I
Okay.
start getting overly
So
excited about
Wow.
music and yelling and waking my daughter up.
so one
Or
thing
else
I
I'm just gonna burst into song.
one thing I wanted to ask was I know we've talked before in past episodes about different movies, games, media franchises that like because of their content we were disallowed to have. When it comes to music, is there anything that uh, you kind of hid from your parents to that degree? I'll give one example. Um, I'd say probably like late 90s, early 2000s. I was probably like 8, 9, 10 years old. We used to go to a flea market a lot, and there was a place that sold like a lot of bootleg CDs. And I remember like the two CDs I convinced my dad to get was like Eminem's first two albums. And like there's like a line in one of his songs where like he's talking about, kids had this CD from their parents, like bad report cards. Like that was literally like one of those like I would turn on, like it was always like real low unless I was at home by myself, like always real low. Anytime they were around, that got hidden. I probably learned like every vulgar word I've ever heard from like one of those two albums. I'm curious if y'all have any similar stories.
Go ahead, Nick.
Not with music. Um, yeah, not with music. I feel like they just didn't have enough awareness about maybe how technology worked at the time, or that if we're at the computer, we're probably listening to songs. I don't think they put those two things together. Just to make sure you had headphones on. There was
Yeah.
plenty where it was like, yeah, don't listen to it without headphones for sure.
Yeah.
Um, but no, I don't remember like having to do any work for that. Um, Definitely with some games and movies for sure, but not like we've talked about this before. Most of that was just because it was you know demonic or something. We're talking about Pokemon or something here.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah, super demonic.
yeah. Now I do know that like watching, like, I didn't want my parents to know I was watching like VH1 or MTV. That was things like, and they didn't probe into any of that or anything, but I never remember. I just would watch it like late at night and stuff, and they just thought those channels had a lot of bad content, like the Real World and all that different, those reality shows and stuff. So and they were right. It's yeah, not so much with music. No, I never really listened to like Eminem or anything until I was older, and I still had never bought like a Eminem album. It's not that I don't like the songs. It's not an artist I follow. So
If if I had an example, it would probably be listening to Eminem at too young of an age because
Wait till you.
uh, I remember like hearing them in like probably my stepdad's car or hearing them somewhere, and then also I'm probably gonna be corrected on this, but I feel like being told that I couldn't listen to them like basically without supervision or something. Like I remember not being able to like go over the top and listening to Eminem because he had that song. It was the one where he's dressed up like Robin and he's climbing up the wall. I can't remember talking about the
yeah, I know the album you're talking about.
two girls in the trailer park round the outside, or
Yeah.
something like that. I can't remember.
There,
um, but like I remember being a little bit more monitored. Like I couldn't listen to too much of that. Um, but there wasn't a whole lot. Like I had to be careful about what I listened to around my dad because my dad's was the side of my family that was real big into church, and he's a preacher now and all that stuff. So like but when I was around him, I mean, he'd listen to stuff like AC/DC was his favorite band, and so I have like an appreciation for that. But I couldn't really listen to anything more than that around him without me. That's what it was. Austin, thank you. Yeah, that was
I've had a newer
that was
like
the
your.
point where my parents were like, maybe not.
I've had a newer appreciation for ACDC lately. Like
Mm,
growing up listening to classic rock, like I heard it all the time. So it was like to a point where I'd heard everything and had enough of it. But I know that it's Caleb Shomo from Beartooth. It's his one of his favorite bands. And
and they
now
start with Thunderstruck now.
now that I know that though, and like I've been listening to more ACDC lately, I can hear some similarities. Like
hmm
it, but so a new
I've
appreciation for them.
Yeah, that's what I've always loved about them is they've always said that they're rock and roll, and then it's like in the last few years he's kind of came forward and given a lot more of that credit to AC/DC, and yeah, it's like he said, it's like, oh, of course, like it's been there the whole time.
And actually, like one of my favorite one of my favorite songs of theirs is like one of their B-side tracks, "Young." That's like literally an ode to ACDC.
Yep, good stuff. I see what Bryson mentioned in the chat, and all I can think of is y'all want a single say fuck that.
Dude, I know you probably remember
One of
this,
my
Barrett, but
favorite songs growing up, and I liked it way too young as well. Like I was like, it was such a good song, and but I have like a big memory of.
yeah, when you're like 3 and 4 year olds start singing it, you like it's funny, but you start to question like, am I a good parent?
You are. I
Yeah, we've
mean,
had to like
yeah,
Ollie's really attached to music too, and there's a few songs that we've like introduced her to, and they're like, maybe we shouldn't have like. You don't think about the context of some of the lyrics or like how there's like a bridge and it says something, and you're like, oh wow, that's probably not good for kids, and then that's her favorite freaking part.
It's funny how that works though, because like he heard stuff like that younger, and obviously he, singing it in public. But like it's funny now because we've never really been too strict on use of vulgar words. Like we let him know that there's a time and place where it's appropriate, and but like to the point now where it's like it'll come up and he'll accidentally say something that he thinks might be somewhere on the spectrum of being vulgar, and it like breaks his heart. And I'm like, you're not in trouble, dude. It's just about
I remember breaking his heart when I told him to turn his music down and Steak and Shake. I
yeah.
was like, you can listen. Let's just like turn it down a little bit.
But
Oh man.
yeah, it's just it's interesting with kids because I mean I'm
Hmm.
still of that opinion.
And
Like
explaining what bad words are,
yeah,
and like why some words are bad to say.
and
It's
honestly
things
And
you
like
don't.
explaining it, yeah.
Yeah, you
yeah,
don't think about it till you're teaching it.
but even then it's like I'm more on the path of not caring as much because it's all about the intent. Like whatever bad word you can say, I can say any normal word and say it with the same, you know, say it with the same intensity or the same conviction and stuff, and to mean the same thing. And that's what we just always try to teach. It's more so about how you use these words and knowing when to. Like I'm never going to be too strict on like what he says around me, but there's obviously a time and place. Like just because you might say it in front of me, you don't say it in front of a teacher or boss, whatever whatever the situation is. But um, yeah,
Well,
it's
if you slam that band hammer down, they're just gonna do it behind your back anyways.
yeah.
So you want them to be as close and honest with you as they can be without like feeling like they need to go hide. Because I mean, I remember going to school and riding the bus for the first time and coming home and telling my parents about how all the kids in the back of the bus say bad words. I was
Yeah.
right back there with them.
Hey, speaking of take root yoga here mentioned a comment about Ollie saying motherfucker, and it actually flagged it in our comments as a bullying word. So
She,
uh,
because
I
I did
I
something to mess
I
with Brandy
allowed
the
it,
other night,
but
and she goes, "You motherfucker," and then Ollie goes, "Yeah, motherfucker," and we were like, we both went, "No, don't do that." Like I remember like just trying not to react, but it was like the clearest. It was so good. Like, I, like when you gotta hide laughing, and
Oh,
yeah.
Brandy. Oh, it's
she,
funny. Brandy's got this friend on PlayStation Network that apparently changed their name to Jack Miofsky. And every time they sign on, it pops up a notification. And Milo's always like, "Oh, Jack Miofsky," and I'm like, "Milo," and he's like, "Does that
yeah,
mean something?" I'm like, "Yeah," but but like the thing with the swear words and stuff like that, it's like, yeah, when you break it down, I mean, it's like, are you teaching? It's okay to be angry. That's the thing is like when you really think about it, it's like it's okay to use these words. Yeah, they do mean things. Yeah, they're not always good. Yeah, you don't always have to mean something good. Like, and music's probably a safe place to say something that's not good because it's all about like expression and stuff like that. So I think there's like a lot of nuance there, and I think you're absolutely right. Like Barrett or Brandon, maybe you just made this point too, but they are gonna just find another way to do it and hide it from you. Like if you think that you can control it at some point, it's like the best you can do is give them some advice about
yeah,
maybe how to avoid some of these painful things you don't want them to experience or get themselves in trouble where, that's an unpleasant thing. But when it comes down to it, I'm like, fine, it's like I swear.
hmm
Okay, why is that okay? So anyway. But yeah, it's hard to know when it's right and when you gotta, reel it in. But yeah, what about any favorite like album covers come to mind that you remember,
Hmm.
or have you thought about that, like the art that's on some of them?
well, yeah. Um, this Avenged Sevenfold Sounding of the Seventh Trumpet. It's their first album. It's a like a purple, and it's got like an angelic lady, and it's just I don't know. It's like it looks like a painting, and that one is probably one of
Oh,
my
that's cool.
favorites. Um, Under Oath, they've got all their art to Lost in the Sound of Separation, and that album as a whole. That's also in my top 3. But that whole album, I mean, it's all like lines and stuff, and just kind of like abstract kind of art, like almost like mountain peaks and stuff. But I like that one a lot as well. Oh yeah, Kanan mentioned the Used in Love and Death. Yeah, Alex Pardee, he did a lot of the Used art, all their album art, or a lot of their album art, and it's really good. Like the heart noose hanging and stuff.
Bryson mentioned Tool, which all their artwork's always been.
Alex Gray.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody's as we
The
talk.
10,000 Days came with like one of the versions of it, or maybe I don't know if all of them did, but they came with like these little goggles that you could look through and like look at the album art through these little like magnification goggles and trip out while you're looking at the album art.
Yeah, I remember seeing some of those. I remember one album cover that got me interested just because of the cover, and I think, I meant to mention this earlier. Do y'all remember Sam Goody? Do y'all remember those stories?
Name.
I don't
They
think
they
so.
were
No.
they were
The
they
word
were
you
just they were just like a God, I'm trying to think of a store that it would be like, but it was like seat music store, but they also had like cool
FYE?
fandoms. Yes, yeah, okay. So Sam Goody was bought by FYE. Yeah,
Okay.
at least there must have been a smaller chain or something. But yeah, loved those stores. Did y'all love going in those back in the day? I don't know if there's any still around.
FYE, there's one in Knoxville in the mall up there. I still like to try and go to it if we're going through there, but FYE, and we used to have a place in Chattanooga called Media Play,
Oh yeah,
and I really liked it a lot. Yeah.
Yep. Oh man, Media Play.
If you were a nerd slash person that loved music, that was like the store. It's awesome. It's like for a short time while I worked at Hot Topic, there was still an FYE, just like 3 stores down. I remember that.
I love those stores. They always had the coolest stuff in them. And
for everything you wanted was in there.
Yeah, I remember I debated on getting it for the longest time, but I was always looking. I don't know if I didn't use the internet as much to figure out if like new albums were coming out and stuff. And it's not probably because it wasn't available to get that information from. But I just remember like going to like Sam Goody or FYE all the time and just seeing if something new had come out from whatever band or artist that I liked. But I remember there was Fall Out Boy, but it was the string quartet. I don't know if you've ever listened to it, but it's four violins doing covers. And man, I debated on buying that so many times, and then eventually got it after like years of it sitting there, and was like, "Oh yeah, this is awesome. I'm gonna put this on as I fall asleep or something," and loved it.
Makes me think of Apocalyptica. Did you ever listen to Apocalyptica?
I don't
they
think
did all
so.
the string quartet versions of like they did a bunch of like songs and like
sounds familiar.
That and then like
nerdy stuff.
That and like the one song they did with Adam Gontier from 3 Days Grace. It's probably the most famous one.
Oh, cool.
They did one with they had a few people like featured in songs. They had
they had a whole album that was just
Corey
like
Taylor.
featured.
Yeah, they had a whole album of like people that like featured on songs. But I remember finding like some of their old stuff that were just like they would do like a string version of like I want to say like the Zelda theme or something. Like they had like a bunch of like stuff like that.
But there was one album I do remember seeing actually got me into the artist. I didn't love too many of their songs, and you're probably gonna know why after I mention who they were, if you're familiar with them. But this artist band Chiodos, and they had an album called All's Well That Ends Well, and it's super cool. I just wish I could share it live, but the art is so good on it. I was like, this has to be awesome, and then turn it on, and it's just like shrieking banshees is what I would describe it as, and I was like, I cannot let my mom hear this. So back to your question.
There's like 3 or 4 songs I can go back and listen to and be like, this was the shit, and then other ones I'm just like, how did I like this?
I liked like All Nereids Beware or whatever that one song was called.
I
But
can't
yeah,
remember
it's
any of their song names.
so heavy. It was like it just so I don't know if it's heavy, but it's just the screaming. I can't do it. I can't do too much of it. But
Me
anyway,
and
that
Austin
album
actually
was
went
so.
and saw them together.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but it
How
was
was
like one
that?
of their
That had to be
New
fun.
Devils. It was one of their newer albums, and it was really good. It was really good because they had the guitarist of The Fall of Troy was playing with them for that tour, and he had like helped write that album and stuff too. So it was like really cool to, I don't know.
Trying to see
Austin
what
got
this
me into The
emoji
Fall of
is.
Troy a lot.
What is this? What does this emoji from Austin
He's
mean in
happy,
the chat?
happy crying. He's happy that you mentioned Chiodos.
Is that what y'all see? I see some kind
Yeah.
of gradient green circle
Yeah,
that's going
Oh,
through an eclipse or
it's like
something.
it's just a smile with a teardrop.
yeah, it's
Oh,
just a white
that's weird. That did
circle
not
the way I'm
translate.
looking at it.
Yeah.
Uh,
I won't
Okay.
say it's my favorite album art or anything, but I think it kind of defined that whole time period for me is A Day to Remember's Homesick album. Like
oh yeah.
like that defines so much of like that whole like aesthetic. Like
Let's see.
Yeah, I would be crazy if I didn't mention the Devil Wears Prada's Plagues art
yeah,
alongside that because they were kind of the color schemes were similar, but Plagues for sure had awesome art.
This is cool. But yeah, I just looked up the album. The Homesick album. Yeah, that's really cool. That reminds me of some like H.P. Lovecraft.
yeah, it's definitely been copied and parodied and influenced so many times.
That's really cool. Do you guys collect vinyls at all?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean I don't
I
like
know
go out
you.
of
I
my way
think
for
I've
them, but I
seen
have a
some of
good
yours.
decent stack of them.
Gotcha. Do you listen to them or do you just you know like them for
Not
the novelty?
not a whole lot. Um, at this point, it's more convenient to buy a vinyl to me than a CD because cars don't have freaking CD players in them anymore, and you,
Mm-hmm.
I don't have like a stereo system, but I've got a record player. So like, I mean, I don't have every Beartooth CD, but I have every Beartooth record. Like I've got every one of their albums on vinyl. And I've got a lot of my favorite albums are like, I limit that to like, okay, I want to own this on vinyl. And we'll revisit them from time to time. Like I said, I don't go out of my way to listen to music a whole lot anymore. I like Kanan likes music for background noise and stuff. And like, I feel like I can't think if there's like music, especially music that I love. Like I just get invested in every word to the song. Like I don't know. I've always been like a singer, so like I just get into the lyrics and singing and jamming out. So it almost distracts me. So I have to like intentionally sit down and want to listen to something to like pull the records out. But if like I don't know, I'm definitely a if I like we went to a Devil Wears Prada show like last year, the year before, and they had the Zombies EP on vinyl, and I'm like, I gotta have that. Like, sometimes there's things where I'm like, okay, I have to have this on vinyl, but and I don't really sit down and listen to them enough.
Yeah.
Spotify has
No, I
spoiled
get it.
us.
Yeah, I used
Yeah.
to.
No,
I don't as much anymore. I mean, but I've probably got maybe 5 or 6 vinyls over the past, well, probably as many years, 5 or 6 years. Like, I mainly listen to everything through Spotify, but like when I do buy something, it'll be a vinyl.
Look up the Devil Wears Prada Plagues, Nick. That's the artwork.
where's
I, I don't
oh
I don't know
I was
about
not
the
going
Plagues
ready.
is the album name. Um, band's Devil Wears Prada. That's another band that I just feel like deserves an honorable mention. In that genre, I feel like they're one of the most consistent bands that have never let me down.
Yeah.
And they've been holding the whole like metalcore scene up for since the early 2000s.
I just looked up that album. That's really cool. The art. See, I would buy some of these albums without even knowing what's on it, just for the art. You know, if I saw the vinyl out in the wild, I would be like, yeah, I'm gonna get that and try to put it in a frame or something like that. Are there any songs that have like a maybe aren't your favorite songs that have like a significance to you? Well, I guess we kind of talked about that with like Taking Back Sunday and different stuff.
We
Um,
could answer the same question again with different
you
answers if
probably
you
have,
asked it. I
yeah.
guarantee it. Because
I'd,
as we talk more about this, I knew it was gonna happen. I'm like, we're gonna get on this tangent about music, and I'm just gonna be like, how could I say that this is my favorite when you mention something, and I'll be like, but no, but that, oh, but this, like that's how I feel like in
oh,
this music
as,
conversation.
as as soon as you mentioned it, like for some reason my brain like went to like straight to "Smells Like Teen Spirit" by Nirvana. Like,
Mm.
um, cause like late '90s music was like really influential to me. Um, like my brother was like in his teenage years during that time, so like I was listening to like a lot of the same stuff he was, and so yeah, like definitely that grunge era, like Nirvana, Soundgarden, Stone Temple Pilots. I mean, you name it, Pearl Jam. Like a lot of that was. I'd hate to go by and not mention any of that.
We didn't talk too much about was like, and maybe there's not if there's not many you remember whatever, it's fine. But like movies, are there any soundtracks or scores to like a movies that you super stick with you that you ended up listening to or looking up later that you remember? While you're thinking, I'll mention like a couple of mine were like shoot. You guys, there's this movie. Well, there's like so many that come to mind, but there was this one movie called K-Pax. I don't know if y'all ever saw it, but it had a really cool like piano themes all throughout it. It's like a super good score. Um, I mentioned like John Williams earlier. Anything from like Christopher Nolan, like the
John
Interstellar
Williams.
soundtrack, I'll
Mm.
listen to that pretty often and stuff. But I don't know if y'all had any like that. Cloud Atlas, like I said, that's a great one.
There is a movie that I can't remember the name of it, but it has one of the best soundtracks of all time.
What's it about? The movie? You don't remember the movie either? I'm
I
just
don't
kidding.
remember.
I'm just messing with you.
No, I remember it's crazy. I think I remember the soundtrack more than I remember the movie. I mean, it had like corn on it.
Um,
It that's gonna drive me nuts. I'll come back to it.
huh.
But Brandon mentioned earlier Harry Potter. Obviously, that the
Oh,
soundtrack to
nice.
all of that,
Yeah.
like bringing, like I read the books, and then when the movies came out, and like getting to hear, for the first time, this bringing this world to life. I remember that music just being, it's iconic, but I just remember being in the theater and being like amazed, just engulfed in it, and
Yeah.
always listen to the music after that.
Yeah, I'll
Um,
definitely say Harry Potter. Like that's the one. That's the one like film score that I can listen to, and pretty much like every song, I can probably tell you what scene it's from for the
Nice.
most part. Um, Outside of that, like one that I really like, I haven't listened to it a lot lately, but I used to listen to it quite a bit. Was the Blade Runner film score? Like I like a lot
Yeah,
of like the '80s like cyberpunk stuff.
oh, that's cool. Then you're talking about the original
Yeah,
Blade Runner or
yeah,
the newer one?
the original.
Gotcha. That's cool. I
Queen of
haven't
the
listened to
Damned.
the Queen of the Damned. Is that the movie
Hmm.
that had Corn?
It had yeah, Papa Roach, Marilyn Manson, Deftones, Disturbed. Um, it did not have Corn. That was a false memory. It had Wayne Static from Static X.
Dude, it's funny
It
you.
just
It's
and it had. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say it's funny you bring that up because like right around that time that movie came out, like I remember that one pretty well. But like I went through this phase of like I would listen to music and I would think of like almost like from a producer sense of like, oh, this would fit this scene really well. Like I can't remember like it would be like for instance there was that movie, and I think it was like the Mummy movies where I'd be
Yeah.
like I'd listen to something like Godsmack or something like there'd be like one Godsmack song like, ooh, this would fit really well in this scene of the Mummy, or something along those lines. But like I definitely
That's cool.
went through phases where I was like attaching different songs and like to different like themed type movies like that.
Uh, Godsmack. I remember there was a show called Fear,
Yeah,
and the song for it was Voodoo.
yeah.
And I remember loving that song pretty much because it was the like intro song to that show.
For that show,
I
what
see
was it
where
about?
Bryson had said Queen of the Damned. I was over here like Googling. I was like, what is that?
Oh, I thought that's what
Bryson
you
nailed it.
read.
No, I didn't know. I was over
Gotcha.
here Googling and then came back to Twitch and said it and then looked down. Queen of the Damned? Yes, that was it. Could have saved time if I would have just waited for a minute.
That's
Uh,
funny.
but yeah. Um,
Yeah, no, that's fair. Something I don't know. Have y'all ever had where you listen to, and this is gonna be a weird question, so bear with me. Like, you ever had where you listen to um music in like a movie or just instrumental music, but like you imagine like a bunch of lyrics to it
oh yeah.
that you thought of or wrote down?
Mhm.
Maybe didn't
I
write down, but you know
rewrite
what I mean.
songs in my head all the time, especially whenever they get old. When you listen to
Mm,
something so much, you just totally rewrite it.
that's
But
cool.
or instrumental stuff that like I'm really into. Like I've got like that song I was mentioned from Crisis Core, "The Price of Freedom."
Hmm.
Bro, I could sing ballads to that fucking song. Like we will write some words.
No,
Speaking
that's cool.
speaking in that vein, like obviously I haven't played the other two games in the series, but there's like this weird feeling I get anytime I hear Dearly Beloved now, to where it's like
Hmm.
on one hand it's like so tranquil, but at the same time there's like something unsettling about it, and I can't quite pinpoint exactly what it is, but that's one that's like
Hmm.
just been stuck in my head lately. Like between
That's that
that,
main.
yeah, that's the main
Sorry, go
menu
ahead.
theme from the.
Okay, I was making sure I wasn't thinking of a different piece from
Yeah.
Kingdom Hearts. That's a great. Oh yeah, just humming that. That's up there with the Final Fantasy VII overworld theme, which I think is
Yeah,
like actually the most memorable piece of music in the game because it's one I find myself humming the most. But it's one I didn't mention earlier when we were talking about games was One Winged Angel is like
Yeah.
dude, I
it's like
didn't.
it's so,
Pinnacle
go ahead.
boss fight music.
Yeah, I didn't realize that I'd heard it before I played the game because
Ah,
a few years ago, there was a wrestler that he was in he was in Japan at the time, but he actually came out dressed as Sephiroth, like with the theme and everything. Like I'll have to send you the video, but there's like a part like where it like
who?
his name is Kenny Omega, but he actually like
Oh,
comes
you're talking
out
about
on
wrestler.
stage. Yeah, he comes out on stage,
Yeah, okay.
and like
Okay,
all you
I
see is
was like,
his
wait, what?
like all you see is his silhouette like up against like this big video screen, and just like one wing pops out like on the big Videotron, and
Oh
he
man,
comes down to the
That's
ring like
instantly the
with
coolest
the full
wrestler.
thing. And so like it didn't really hit me like because at the time I didn't really know what it was from, but it didn't hit me until like I was playing seven, and then I got to that final battle with Sephiroth at the end, and I was like, I've heard this before, but I don't know where. But it's so frustrating. Like it's like instant panic as soon as that comes on.
That song might be most familiar to me from the fight in Kingdom Hearts 2. I
yeah,
think I spent the
yeah.
most time listening to it fighting him in Kingdom Hearts 2.
The most what's funny is to get to the song in the original game, you got to get to the very end. So it's which I didn't do until years after I heard the song, right? So yeah, I know it more from other things than from the actual game it's from. What's so sad too is like you get to that part in the game, the original one, and it's like bleeps and bloops essentially, right? It's not the full like
No.
orchestral, multi-instrumental lyrics and all that. And it's like, wait, what? This is what it was originally, which surely at the time was phenomenal. But the version I know mostly is yeah, either from Kingdom Hearts or from Advent Children.
Yeah,
But
that too.
it's one of the best pieces of video game music. That and Genova's theme. You know the one I'm talking about? I think they played it in remake, and I'm not gonna try to hum it, but it's that really
Bad
techno
at knowing
sounding.
the names of a lot of the like, soundtrack songs. Um,
Gotcha.
but I'm sure I'd know it if I heard it, of
You
course.
you would you would because it starts right when you fight I think Genova for the first time in the game, and it's this really cool
That made me
theme.
think,
But
if you go back and you listen, if you start remake over again, I didn't notice it until I was watching a video, but they slip in parts of One Winged Angel into the opening theme, just
yes,
like little bits.
I, it's
And
so funny you say that. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I
I
just
was
thought like
just listening to
just
the soundtrack.
being more
Sorry.
aware of it, I was like, oh, that's fucking awesome.
I think there's
Yeah,
a.
it's
I
the
think there's.
Latin. Sorry,
No, no,
Brandon.
go
Go
ahead,
ahead.
Nick. Go ahead, Nick.
No, I was just gonna say it's the Latin lyrics from the song. I mean, it's still got some of the melody, but it's like the lyrics, but they're like 1/3 or 1/4 the speed, and it's
Yeah,
so awesome. But I picked
haunting.
up on it. Yeah, I picked up on it the other day when I sent you guys the Spotify album, and it's
Mhm.
like the second or third track on there. And you're right, haunting is the perfect word to describe it. But I love that they did that because there wasn't um that wasn't in the background of that music at all in any
Yeah.
way in the original, but they added that, and it kind of forebodes Sephiroth's presence in the music. Sorry, Brandon, what were you saying?
I was just gonna say like there was one song that I can't remember the name, but it's like throughout seven, like it's the same song like played, but it's like different compositions of it or something. Um, I
It
don't know.
might be the overworld theme.
It might be. It might be.
I'm humming it in my head right now, but there's no way I'm doing it on this live stream. But yeah, great music in that.
I caught myself
There's a
like
lot of
humming it the other day too, but like then I
yeah.
somehow like trailed. Somehow like in my head I meshed together like that overworld theme into like the Legend of Zelda theme somehow, and that just like that
Nice.
took my
That's a
brain
good.
like on this like different tangent of what would happen if like Link and Zelda were in a Final Fantasy game. Like I thought that would be like
Hey,
a cool crossover.
hey, I'd be down for that, man. Those are two of my favorite properties. I tell you, this is another cool music memory. I got to see Symphony of the Goddess in Nashville at the God, what's the name of that music hall? See, I gotta remember.
Ryman,
No, no, not the Ryman.
Bridgestone. It's not the.
Nope, keep going. Music hall in Nashville. God, it's got a funky name. Might be like the
Grand Ole
Ryan C.
Opry.
May. Nah, no. Let's see. I'm hoping it's not the Cannery Music. Let's see here, Macy concert.
Oh,
I
the
want to say it
Cannery
was
Ballroom. I
called
like
like.
that place.
Why am I wanting to say like the Schermerhorn or something like that? Anyway, we saw it somewhere downtown
So,
Nashville. I can't
what
find
is
it.
that? The orchestra that plays like Final Fantasy music?
No, it was I'm sorry, it was The Legend of Zelda.
Oh,
It was the official Legend of Zelda tour for back in 2000 and probably 22. Um wait, what am I saying 2022? Probably 2000 and I don't know, 2000 and something. Probably 2000. But we yeah, we got to go see that in Nashville, and they even had like a video up from the Zelda producers and stuff. Um,
that's cool.
and they played everything from Skyward Sword to Wind Waker. Um, I don't think Breath of the Wild had been announced yet at the time, but yeah, they did the Gerudo Valley theme and everything. So that was super cool. I think we bought like a $50 T-shirt.
And Brandy's over here talking about how she's never been to a concert before.
Yeah, I guess she didn't think of that one. Oh, yeah, there's the comment.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
yeah,
see where she.
that definitely counts. Those tickets weren't cheap. Getting in and out of Nashville at a
Yeah, that's
weekend
really cool.
wasn't.
I've always wanted to go to one of those like symphony type shows because the Kingdom
Dude,
Hearts one has been around before.
oh,
Like I've
that would
seen
be
the Zelda
amazing.
one pop up before. Like that would just be
They're
like,
awesome. I've
yeah,
only
I
been to
bet.
one.
I've never been
That,
to anything
that's
like that.
That's
that's the only one
one
I've
like
been to.
that's
hmm
one we like something like that we need to go to together if
Make
we
it
ever
happen.
find one. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's got to
It
happen
was
for
fun
sure.
because people were like dressed up and stuff, and it was like, yeah, hearing all that music live, which was the first time I'd ever heard an orchestra live, was just like surreal. I don't know, it just didn't even feel real, like all that sound happening right in front of you. And it went for a while. It was like an hour, hour and a half of track after track of just,
See, and in
intense
that
music.
setting, you could watch the orchestra and focus on a player and listen to
Yeah.
that instrument and like just focus on different parts of it. 'Cause
hmm
that's what I love about live music is I mean, a lot of it is like the showmanship, like how a band works together on stage and like
hmm
like how they their eye
Engage
contact
the
and then
audience
the
and
bass
stuff.
player
Yeah.
and the drummer like kind of like at waiting to kick off a part or like, you know, someone trips and falls and they get up and they keep freaking going and act like it never happened or whatever, but like in a it would just be really cool to just be able to see. I don't know, I mean they're all sitting there playing their instruments, but being able to see and sit and focus on a different instrument while they're playing, it just seems really cool. And just getting to hear a live version of it that I feel like is just going to be like the ultimate um love letter to whatever it is, like you're getting to hear probably the best version of whatever song they're playing.
It
Yeah.
was it was phenomenal. I've seen a couple. I'll watch them live sometimes on YouTube. Different orchestrations like the Battle of the Fates from Episode 3 or whatever that song is. Obi-Wan and
Fates,
Anakin.
episode 1.
Duel of the Fates. Yeah, like that one. Like seeing that live would
Mhm.
be
Oh,
unbelievable. Um, but yeah, no,
yes.
that was a great experience. We haven't been back to one just because our kids were so young at the time. It was hard to get away to do that. But yeah, that's a really great experience. There, I'm looking at the
Awesome.
yeah.
So, Nick, you said I know that you've seen the Red Jumpsuit Apparatus live, and you've seen
Yeah.
the Orchestra of the Goddess or whatever. How is that the only like live music events that you've been to?
Um, well, let's see here. That's hard to say. So, in a sense, yes. I'm trying to see. I saw Kill Hannah. I think I saw the Spiders at one point. But most of the rest of the music I've seen live would be different, like church events and stuff like that. So there used to be a event in Nashville called, I think, Acquire the Fire, and it was super like teen Christian hardcore. It happened, I think, at the um, whatever the biggest venue is in downtown Nashville. But one year Paramore showed up. Another year, Switchfoot, I think, showed up out of the blue. Like they surprised performances, so it wasn't like a full-on concert, but they did like a couple songs and shared a little word about faith and stuff like that. So yeah, I don't really consider those concerts, but yeah, besides the couple others I mentioned that were traditional concerts, yeah, I haven't been to too many, and it just yeah, there's reasons for that. I don't know if I don't really like
The
loud
crowd.
noises. I
That's
like the
the
Yeah,
that's
crowd,
the
loud.
loud
worst part.
noises. Yeah,
Yeah,
just the sweatiness and stuff. But you're like, I'm on the. I'd
I
be
was
I'd be
forged in
interested in
those
going.
fires, man.
What's that?
I said I was forged in those
Oh
fires,
no,
like
and more power
just
to
being in a
you.
crowd and well, I can understand it though because like now going to a show, my view is like different because like I would rather not be in such a big room, but like I've always I don't know loved the live setting, but now that I don't know now that I'm just like I'd rather not. Sometimes like I'd just rather like listen to them and not have to go like stand in a room and sweat and jump and hope some drunk idiot doesn't try to fight me for bumping into him or something like But every time I go, I'm reminded why I love going to live shows, and like even love being a part of the crowd, and especially whenever you're surrounded by people that are like go into like heavier shows and stuff, and everyone in the crowd's working together to keep everybody up, or pass people over your heads, people crowd surfing. I don't know, just the camaraderie you get in a crowd, the people that you'll never see again probably. And I don't know, it's something that like I can easily take for granted and not want anything to do with until I'm in it and I'm reminded like, oh yeah, like this is what life is. This
Yeah.
is what life is
There
about.
there's definitely those moments where like it totally feels like, you know, something
Hmm.
new and exciting and just like just to feel the vibration of like everything going on. But and there's always like one or two people, probably more, but there's always like one or two that you're around that just have no self awareness and just ruin it for everybody.
Yeah, we
And
were around. It happens every time. Like almost every time you're like, okay, avoid that guy. Like you come into the crowd
Dancing, yeah.
and
but
yeah, and there's just some idiot getting mad or that, like don't push me. Like, bro, you're in a tight. We're all shoulder to shoulder. Shut up, dude. I
yeah,
Yeah.
don't know.
like Bryson said in the comments, like Sleep Token was worth the BS of the last festival we went to, but like, and that's true. Like we saw, I think it was like Death Clock and then Sleep Token like back to back, and that was pretty cool. But there was definitely like a moment in that I think it was Tool. Like we were going to see Tool, and like between like people pushing around, people getting hurt around us, and just how crowded we were, like we definitely got to a point where we kind of looked at each other and like, yeah, I don't think we're gonna do a festival for a long time. Like I love doing it, but yeah, there's just so much like energy that goes into it, and especially something that lasts like 2 or 3 days, where it's like you've got to be
You gotta
mentally prepared for all of it.
you gotta be either ready to see everybody or going for, there's a few different reasons. For a festival, it's like, yeah, if it's a good time and there's like one or two good bands you want to see and they're not going to play at the same time, so you're going to have a chance to like be able to see both and then just kind of enjoy the rest of it and not feel stressed to, you know, try and be at the front of every like you got because that's what like I grew up going to Warp Tour. I went to at least 9 different Warp Tours, 8 or 9 different Warp Tours. I went 6 years in a row at one point, and so like I remember loving that kind of festival, but I couldn't do it for days at a time. I've done it one time with you guys, and we had the Airbnb, and that was a lot of fun. But like the weather screwing up that second, the biggest day of it being just sets in that like, yeah, I don't like this. I would rather go see a band on a tour of there's only 5 of them, and they play in succession, and then you go home at the end of the night. Like I've definitely grown to prefer that route. I feel like festivals are fun if you're either trying to knock out a bunch of bands on your bucket
Yeah,
list and hopefully 2 bands don't play at the same time that you really want to see, which Warped Tour that happened more times than I could count when like two of
yeah.
my favorite bands I wanted to see for the day are playing at the same time.
I
And you
mean,
got to make that decision. And that hurt me a lot of times.
money wise, like it's definitely the best way to like. It's like the most cost effective way to like knock out like a bunch of different bands at once. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of mental like gymnastics where it's like, okay, well, there's 5 different stages, 20 or 30 different
This band's
bands
playing at
playing. They
2:50 and this band's
okay,
playing at 3:45,
yeah.
3:15. So
So
if we like watch like 10 minutes of their set, we can make it over to the other side of the park for the just in time to catch like the last bit of their set.
and even then, it's like you got to pick and choose. It's like, okay, well, this is the band I'm here most to see, so I'm gonna try to get to the very front. But this next band that comes on, I'm gonna probably stand about 100 yards back because it's gonna give me time to get to the next band I got to go see. Or it's like I'm not.
I
This
don't want to
one's
try to
not
get up
worth.
front here.
Yeah, it's like, and most places like you can get to a good point where you can still see from so far back. But yeah, there's definitely those. It's like, okay, like I like this band, but I'm not going to go fight everybody to get to the front. Like I'll stand 100 yards back and be happy with that.
Or
But
like sitting or standing in a crowd of a band you really don't want to see because you want to see the band. You want to be in a
yeah,
good place for the band that goes on after them.
yeah.
So you're like standing there watching some band you do not care about while you're waiting on the next band to come on.
And usually the ones we go to, it's like, a 3 day festival. And like the first 2 days, we've got everything planned out. And we're so exhausted by the third day where it's like, okay, this opens up at 10 o'clock or so, but we're probably not going to get there till 3 p.m. And out of the 20 bands playing, we might see two or three of them.
Mm-hmm.
It's
At that point, you're
definitely,
paying for like this experience that you're not getting to fully experience.
yeah,
And also, all those bands are exhausted from playing a lot of the times outside in the fucking blaring heat.
yeah.
So you're not getting the most intimate, best version of their set you could get.
Some of them
That's where I like
too,
sit on that bucket list level. Like, so I know some of them go the fuck all out. Like, there's a band called Fever 333 now. They used to be Let Live, and it's because they have these people in their band that have always just embodied chaotic rock, and they climb the rafters and they get up on top of the whole freaking stage, and they're like 30 feet up in the air in the middle of their set, and you're like, holy shit, I couldn't get this anywhere else.
yeah,
But then there's other bands that like, I feel like it's just like too often that like a band you really want to see gives you a lackluster set, and it's probably because they're um, on a festival lineup. Like
yeah,
when we went to that last one and we pulled up on Architects, like we were a little late. It was the only one of the few bands I really wanted to see that day, and we get up to Architects and they played. I mean, it wasn't my favorite songs at all, and I don't know. It was just a lackluster set in my opinion, and it just felt like low energy, I guess, in a way. And it might be because where we were and that we got there a little bit late and song choices, but I don't know. There's something a little bit more special to me about like a venue show.
yeah. It definitely depends too, like it being outdoors like that. It definitely depends on what kind of show they are and what time of day it is. Because, and I've probably been to like 6 or 7 festivals at this point, and I've seen Rob Zombie at like 3 or 4 of those, and at 9, 10 o'clock at night when it's dark outside, it's a great show. But if he's on at like 4 or 5 when like the sun's still out, like it's not worth like watching almost. So it like I said, Rob Zombie,
It's definitely not
like
always the case. I don't mean to say it's always like that at festivals. It's just too
yeah,
much of a risk you take for such an investment of your time and money.
yeah, it definitely is.
Um,
It's bittersweet
Oh,
though,
not
because
selling me on this.
I love going, but it's yeah, there are pros and cons. So
Sounds horrible.
I mean,
Sounds absolutely
yeah,
horrible to me.
honestly, I can already tell you, probably wouldn't want to go
now
to a
you,
show with me.
No, no, it's the
Depends on how
same as
high and
like,
lazy I'm feeling that day. Because if it's like a really chill day, I'm gonna get there and be like, yeah, and I'm not trying to invest too much energy in this night. But if it's like, I mean, if we're going to see Beartooth, bro, keep up. Good luck.
yeah, if I like want an opportunity to feel awkward and out of place, I'll definitely tag along for a concert. I mean, I don't like going to the grocery store because it's too intense for me. So like, I don't think the concert would. I'm just saying, like, I don't like being around people for that duration of time. So I don't know if I would totally click with the whole concert scene. But yeah, I think I'd just be standing there very stoic, trying not to have a panic attack. So,
Well,
but it does
next
sound
week
fun.
we're gonna go sing our hearts out to Red
But
Jumpsuit and all the
I feel like
songs that
Red.
defined our childhood.
See, that sounds great though, because I feel like the energy would be. I mean, I
Yeah,
don't
because I
see
don't
too
think it's
much
gonna be. It's at
thrash
a
dancing.
tiny little room show, dude. No, I don't think it'll be anything like that. It's a tiny little venue. The last time I was there, we saw a bunch of like smaller bands at, and it was really cool. It was just a really nice venue, and it was like
Yeah.
a better intimate kind of setting venue. It's all general admission standing room, and I mean, it's still got tickets that are on sale. So it's like something I don't feel like would sell out. And it's not like there's going to be like crazy moshers and people pushing around. It's going to be a karaoke night, if anything, people singing along. That's how I
Oh,
expect
that's
it
super
to be.
cool. Are all the
If I showed
same
up and
band
people are
members?
moshing, yeah, I don't know if all the same are, but Ronnie is still in the front of that band, so that's all that really
That's what
matters to me.
matters. Yeah, same
Yep.
here.
As long
His
as you still
voice is
got the
so
guy.
distinct.
Yep.
Yeah. Does he still have the flowing locks, or did he cut those off like when he hit 40 or
It's
whatever the heck he is?
it's kind of like the length of mine right now. I got my hair cut. It's kind of like,
Oh, okay.
like right here in the pictures I've seen on the promotions for the album or for the tour.
Did they have an album before? You know, the one with face down on it.
Don't You Fake It. I think they
Yeah,
had
don't you think?
just like demos before that. I don't think they had a
I
full
think,
album because
yeah.
before that, like all the songs that were on it were called different stuff. Like Your Guardian Angel was called the acoustic song.
Yes, I remember that. I bought that.
Uh, the first song on the
Bought
album, uh, it's like my favorite fucking song. What was it called? It used to be called Ass Shaker. And then when they
Oh,
put it on the album, it's called something totally different.
yeah, you're bringing back all these memories. I remember seeing
Uh,
that on the
they
EP.
had songs that weren't even, Disconnected, Home Improvement. They had songs that were like before Don't You Fake It or like B-sides to Don't You Fake It. But I don't think they had an album before Don't You Fake It. But I kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier, but like they did have albums after that, and there was at least 1 to 2 songs on each album that they had after that that were solid. Like they definitely put
Mhm.
out some good stuff, but there was nothing as collectively great as Don't You Fake It.
Yeah, that seems to be the case with a lot of artists, but yeah,
Yeah,
that album
unfortunately.
was good stuff. That's sounds like it's gonna be a good show.
Um, so if you guys had to pick 3 albums, pick 3, and then we can have a tier 2. Me and Kanan have played this game with our friend Shanna. So tier 1, you can only pick 3 albums. What are those 3 albums for like a desert island? These are the only albums that you can listen to.
Oh boy, I'm on the spot.
So Take Me Back to Eden from Sleep Token. Um, Phobia from Breaking Benjamin. And that third one's tough. Uh, mm,
You get a
prob-
tier 2.
yeah.
So you get one more set of 3.
Ooh. I'll just go ahead and throw Homesick from A Day to Remember on that third one.
Da 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 da. Yeah. I'll go ahead and say mine because I know my top 3 pretty quick. City of Evil, Avenged Sevenfold. Lost in the Sound of Separation by Under Oath. Disgusting by Beartooth. Those 3 albums, 100%.
Okay, give me a second. You put me on the spot, so
It's okay. I thought of another band that I haven't mentioned that's meant a lot to me, and I just want to bring them up because
go
I
ahead.
know Kanan listens to them, but Finch. If either of you guys listen to Finch, they've got a song
I've
that's
heard
pretty
of
popular.
Finch.
What It Is to Burn. It's one of their more popular songs from like the early 2000s. But that's another band that my stepdad introduced me to growing up that's like meant a whole lot, and they're kind of on the end of like post-hardcore punk.
Yeah.
But yeah, Finch is a fantastic band. I don't think they've released anything that I've not loved.
I think my favorite from them is Ink, probably.
Ah, yeah, great song.
All right, I'll give you my 3, though. I'll probably would. This is the ones I can think of right now. You said
You
desert.
get a second tier.
Okay. Okay, I wasn't following. I thought we were doing like a tourney for these, where it's like, okay, now pick one of
Yeah,
those.
but it's like
Okay.
anybody that does it because you're gonna remember things as you do this. So like
Okay.
you got a second chance for a
Okay.
set
Fair
of
enough.
three.
So here's my three that I thought of that these are soundtracks I've listened to a lot. So Hosier, I mentioned earlier, his self-titled first album that had "Take Me to Church" on it. That would be one. The Shadow of the Colossus game soundtrack. Um, that would be one. Particularly the song, I think, and I don't know if it was in the game. I think it was like a track that they recorded, but they didn't put in the game. But I think it was called "The Sunlit Earth." It's only like a 2-minute track, but it's beautiful. Um, and then this is one I wish I'd mentioned earlier, and this might be super dorky, but the Matrix soundtrack. Not not
Okay.
not
I
the
think
not the not the bands, but the actual score to the movie, like
okay.
the instrumental music. It is just the weirdest, like most chaotic music, and it has like all these different ranges and stuff. Like to this day, I don't think I've heard any other music that sounded as original. Is more original than the Matrix soundtrack, and that's one that like I'll listen to,
Mm.
as strange as it is. So, yeah.
That's this is off the topic, but that is one of my submissions for our movie nights.
Oh, good.
Because Kanan has
Canon.
never seen The Matrix, and I haven't seen it in a long time.
Oh, I
I
love the
feel like the
Matrix.
first one is just very relevant.
You guys want to talk about dissecting a movie, or like you talked about dissecting like songs and lyrics and stuff? I will definitely do that with movies, and The Matrix is one of those where I had like an obsessive level of interest in the lore and what was happening and all that different stuff. So yeah, no, I'm glad you mentioned that now. That's definitely one. I can watch that movie 100 times. So yeah.
Um,
So you're gonna kick off tier two?
Oh,
yeah, who wants to go first for tier two?
not me.
I'll go. Not to copy Barrett, but I'll have to go with "Sick and Disgusting" by Beartooth.
Mhm.
Um, but then the last two a little more alternative. So "AM" by the Arctic Monkeys, and um, then "Mr. Asylum" from Highly Suspect.
Okay.
There you go. Next. Almost got mine.
My video is going to disappear for a minute because I've got to just refresh my brain. Um, I've got to mention like Moss to Flames. They definitely have to be in my tier two. So I'm gonna say "Eye for an Eye" by like Moth to Flames. They're like still one of my favorite bands to this day. Um, hmm, ooh, ooh. Um, oh, what is that album called? Radical by Every Time I Die. That like it was the end of that band's life. They'd been a band for 20 years and they put out their best album last and then quit. But that album is edging my top tier. Like it could knock one of those other ones off potentially. Um, and then the third one, hmm, I might have to think about number three because there's too many good ones. It gets too much to be like a serious thought. Like I'm
Yeah.
making them fight in my head.
Uh,
There is a newer band that I really like that could make it up there. There's a band called Grey Haven, and I would say their album "This Bright and Beautiful World." I discovered them back in like September. Me and Austin went to see The Fall of Troy. Um, in Knoxville, and they one of their supporting bands with this band called Greyhaven. I remember we're sitting in the back. We're just kind of like chilling for the first part of the show. We didn't really know the first band, so like they had tables in the back of the room. We're just kind of waiting. The crowd's real thin, so we weren't like trying to push up front because like you could. There was like no crowd up there. We're just chilling, and first band comes on. They're all right. They go off. The second band goes on. And it's Greyhaven, and it was from the first note of the guitars. I was like, bro, we got to get up there. Like, whoa, what is this? And I remember just being like kind of dumbstruck by, and it's kind of like, I mean, music like post-hardcore, metalcore, hardcore, whatever you want to call it, like it for some people can, all I don't know. It just seemed there was something about this band that just harnessed everything about all the music that's in that style that I like. It's like they did all of it and nailed it. So, Greyhaven, This Bright and Beautiful World, that's my second number three.
Nice. My turn?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So here's my three. Um, the soundtrack to the Bloodborne video game, orchestral music. There's actually a track on there I was going to mention earlier and I forgot, but it's up there with One Winged Angel for me. It's actually from a boss fight in the DLC, so I'll send you a link for that later. But it's so good. So that there's a movie called The Fountain, and the artist who did the music for it is Clint Mansell, and it's a beautiful soundtrack. There's one track that's like 7 minutes long, and I've listened to it probably like 200 times, and it's all like cellos and violins and stuff, and it builds and builds and builds. But that's a great soundtrack. And then Life Left to Go by Safety Suit. I think I mentioned them earlier. I can't remember if you all were familiar with them or not, but that's one I've listened to a ton, and that's
Right.
more, yeah. And that I think every song on that album's great.
I really like that a lot of your favorite music is like soundtrack music, because that is a very underrated and almost underdiscussed type of music with like the people that I talk with about music. Like I love that. Like I appreciate your appreciation for those things, because like for some reason like I could the music in games it'll stand out a little bit more because it's more of an engaging thing, but like music or movie soundtracks and stuff like that don't ever hit me the first time. Like things have to be pointed out to me for me to really notice it. And it's really not even a type of music that I'd like revisit like listening to like on my own in the car or, in my headphones or whatever. So like I really like that. That's like that takes precedent of most of your top six, as we'll call it, is like mostly soundtracks. So that is, like I said, just a very underrated type of music. And those people like, I don't know. I
Yeah.
like that.
No, I think I'm glad you appreciate it. I think that for me, like, I don't know, when I hear that music, for some reason it tells me like a very clear story.
Hmm.
Like, and I think that there's probably music theory on like what instruments, what paces mean what, right? And what emotions do they elicit and stuff. And I don't know any of that, but I know I feel it when I listen to the music. So like a lot of times when I listen to some of these tracks that are 7 minutes long, right, and they're from a movie or game or whatever, and they're these long orchestral pieces. Something I love is like I imagine an entire like 7 minute movie, right? And maybe it's wordless and you're just hearing the music, but I'll just form an entire story in my head. So like that's something that songs with lyrics don't do as much for me, or they do it, but they're telling you quite literally what they mean
Gives you too
instead of
much
you
to
being a,
focus on.
yeah, well, not does give you too much focus on, but the story is like decided, right? You
Mhm.
know, it's the story they're trying to tell. But if it's just music, you can interpret it like a ton of different ways. But there's still just specific emotions. So I don't know. It just sticks with me for some reason. I have to do something too. I'm sure with my upbringing or whatever. But yeah.
Yeah, like I said, I've gotten into it more because of you, but there's still it's still harder for me to just turn that on and listen because typically, like you said, a lot of the music's composed for like certain scenes, themes, or like emotions.
Mhm.
So like I have to be real careful about which ones I turn on because I could just randomly turn on One Winged Angel and just be like, okay, this is fear and panic right here, just like,
Yeah.
and I don't know if I
Yeah.
want to feel that right now.
And then you put on The Price of Freedom, and you're like, and this is just straight up tragedy.
Yeah.
Oh man. Or yeah, it's just sad. A lot of it's just really
Yeah.
sad.
But I
Um,
do agree that it gets your brain kind of, it allows you, it creates a space in your head to kind of create your own story. So I could see like where that could help with like writing, listening to music if you need to
mhm.
invoke a certain emotion to be able to write a certain way, and you know that there's like a instrumental orchestral track on something that kind of makes you feel this emotion, you can like focus on it because of that.
Yeah.
It's just not a way
Yeah.
that I normally think, but I can see like how that works with like writing and stuff.
No, that's a great point. I hadn't thought of it like that. I guess it's a way of almost like taking inspiration without having any fear whatsoever of ripping somebody off, right? Like, if I'm listening to the Jurassic Park soundtrack or something, like, long as I don't necessarily go write about dinosaurs in a park, right? Like, but I have a totally different scenario because of just the music itself. Like that's like a liberating way to get inspiration. Sometimes, and that's not to say that like sometimes I'll read something and go, oh my God, I want to write something that feels like this or makes me feel this way. But you're absolutely right. Like with how you described how it works for me is, if a piece of music makes you feel like a sense of wonder or awe or sadness or something like that, it totally puts words and scenarios into my head. So I think, yeah, that helps me a ton. Like I literally have a playlist for writing that just says it's just on Spotify, it just says writing, and it's just all instrumental tracks and stuff
That's
that
awesome.
just and it just plays a soundtrack for me like a movie, and then I just kind of write the movie I'm watching in my head. So it works in that sense. But yeah, I love the way you describe that. I think that's exactly how it works for me. So do we get to do another list? Or is it just two lists? Now I want to do all these lists, man. Like
I could probably definitely do a tier 3. Like just, I'm good
then
if you
again,
are.
hey, I'm good. Are we good on time?
I'm
Yeah.
good.
I've got a few more
I have no
minutes
time
before
limit.
I've got to go.
You got a few minutes?
Yeah.
We'll do we'll do Will you do one more tier list and then wrap it up?
Yeah.
Okay. You're gonna have to let me go last again though, even though I'm the one who wants to do another freaking
Brandon
list.
can go
Uh,
first. Because I'm gonna make one real quick too.
So
okay.
this might be a little bit of a cop out, um, but it technically is an album. So Bob Seger's greatest hits, and then the Misfits' greatest hits, and and then probably the third one. Um, I'm torn between. I'd probably say John Mayer's Continuum.
Hmm,
Like if I ever want like anything like easy listening or even like sappy to a point, like I'll turn on John Mayer.
John Mayer. I haven't listened to that much by John Mayer. And it's not that I think he should be, but I hear him made fun of more
Dude, he
than people actually talk about why they like him. Now, but I don't have enough basis of listening to him to know like why you'd make fun of him. Does that make sense? Like,
yeah.
Kind of sucks that he's a meme
but
because I know that he's an incredible
Oh,
musician.
he's
He's had a,
he's like one of the best guitar players I've ever heard.
yeah.
all right, bear with me. I got to pick one more. There's one more album I'm looking for, and then so sorry, I might train of thought shot sideways. Um, for this one to see what the name is.
Um, I'll go ahead and do mine if you want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, go for it.
Don Broco, Technology.
It's a good one.
Um, Scary Kids Scaring Kids.
Mhm.
Either they're self-titled or The City Sleeps in Flames. I'd have a hard time picking between them. I'd probably create my own mixtape of songs from both of those albums. Or I had a third one picked out. Oh God. Science Fiction by Brand New. I
Why
remember that
why that
being
one again? Oh, okay.
that one hit me at a really like just depressed, uh, apathetic time in my life that like I'd always liked Brand New songs and stuff, but that album just I connected with it. I connected with the whole tone of it. It just has this like darker, depressing tone that's like if I'm feeling like just super meh, that is the album. That like just like I said earlier, like it's just like holds you and tells you that it understands. So what the whole album is to me.
I like how you phrase that.
Kanan said Alisana. Oh yeah, that's a yeah. They're the Emptiness album should make it to my fourth tier.
But before you go, Nick, I've got to make
Mhm.
one alteration.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of homesick on that first tier, I would probably rather go with For Those Who Have Heart from A Day to Remember.
Mm. Not Common Courtesy.
Common Courtesy is good, but like
That's my connection with the
for
Day to
those who have
Remember.
heart,
Like that.
just I connect with more of those songs.
Mm,
Homesick's just more of like it's just more popular,
mm.
but yeah, out of the songs I like the most from them, probably For Those Who Have Heart.
Thank you for reminding me of Alisana Kanan, because they definitely should be up there. They could probably knock off Don Broco, put on The Emptiness, or with On Furrow Wings of Vanity and Wax.
So these are my three. I don't know if I'll get teased for this one, but whatever. So in the way we talked about like instrumental music, to me, this artist that I'm going to mention first is like kind of the opposite of it. Like he paints a very literal, clear, well, maybe not literal, but a really clear story, and it's like lyric heavy. He probably writes the lyrics first. At least that's what I think I've heard, and then kind of does the music to it. And that's Ed Sheeran. Like I love Ed Sheeran. The X album in particular, the A Team song I think has got awesome lyrics, and Photograph I think is a beautiful song. I think some people think it's really cheesy, but
Photograph.
no,
Not
not
that
that
movie.
one. God
Oh,
damn it.
okay.
No, don't do that to me. Now, but I think Ed Sheeran's like really great lyricist, and stuff. So yeah, that album X, I think it is that's one I've listened to a lot. Man, I forgot to mention like of Monsters and Men. We'll have to come back to that. I like a lot of their stuff. But there's I don't know if you've heard of this artist Lorne. Have you all heard of Lorne? It's like synthetic.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, like there's an album Vessel that I've listened to a ton that has just awesome, some really heavy, weird, alien sounding tracks. I don't think there's any lyrics in the music, but they've put me in a good weird state of mind a couple times to try and think differently. And then the last one I'll mention is the Journey video game soundtrack from Austin Wintory is one I've listened to just tons. The best track I think, and I think I'm actually going to put together a playlist. Hopefully, I can remember a lot of this what we talked about. But there's one track on the on that album. I think it's "I Was Born for This." I think is the best track, but it's a really amazing song. It actually does have some lyrics too. I just don't know what language they're in or what they're saying. But yeah, those are mine.
It's awesome. You
Yeah,
got a lot
this has
of.
been
Yeah.
I,
fun.
I think I'm gonna try and listen to more soundtrack type music. I think I could handle that being on in the background more than like, because like I said, I get too focused on like the lyrics and the words of songs that I like. Either if I'm listening, even if I'm listening to like a new band or whatever, just there's a I don't know. I kind of want to like get more into listening to stuff like that. That way I can just like kind of sit with the feelings and see where my brain goes with it. Because I might be able to be more creative in that space. Maybe.
I know it helps me.
Yeah.
I think the only problem that I'll warn you about with the soundtracks is sometimes a lot of times there are tracks on those that are just serviceable to a movie scene, right? Where
Yeah.
it's just a really slow couple chords that's just supposed to carry through some dialogue scene and build some suspense. Those don't do shit for me. Like,
Right.
I'm like, there's no melody, there's no story it's telling, it's just kind of creating an ambiance. Those you have to just kind of skip through and find those like 6 tracks that are like the big crescendo, stuff.
And
So
mention the
I'll
Lord of the
share
Rings soundtrack.
Oh
That's
yeah, God,
we've
yes,
definitely
that's
we've definitely
up
worn
there.
that one out.
Yeah, yeah. No, those are ones I listen to a lot too. Those are excellent. I'm gonna put together a playlist though with some of these and share it with you and some of my favorites. And then
I was
Yeah,
gonna
I would love that.
I was gonna say we need
yeah,
to. I mean, as big as music is and different facets for all of us, that's we need to make like a channel in the Discord where we just share playlists or something.
Yeah.
And
Share
event,
songs or
yeah,
yeah,
dude,
playlists or whatever. Yeah, for sure.
that'd be great. Yeah,
yeah.
I wrote down so many of these songs y'all mentioned. I think I've got 20 or 30 songs here
James said
just
we're
that
usually
y'all.
on Disney soundtracks. Yeah, I forget about that, but there's no ambient sound to Disney soundtracks.
Dude,
It's all like
I
meaningful lyrical songs that try and provoke emotion.
I'm pretty sure by the end of the year, like mine and Bryson's phones both, like, or at least our Spotify Wrapped
Yours.
is gonna be like all Disney stuff.
Oh, for
Yeah,
sure.
that's how it is for it's like last year it was Doc McStuffins was number 1 and I think Aurora was number 2 for both of us. That Cure for Me song. It's an incredible song. That song is so ridiculously catchy.
Like the full
Dude,
Encanto
y'all.
album's probably gonna be like the top like 10 songs of mine this year by the time it's over with.
It'll be Encanto for us, no doubt.
Yeah.
Already, like I could listen to I could listen to music for the rest of the year and not listen to Encanto, and I guarantee you that my Wrapped 1 and 2 is
Yep.
going to end up being fucking Don't Talk About Bruno.
Yep.
Do you guys both use Spotify,
Yeah.
or what do
Yeah,
y'all use? Okay, that's
Spotify.
perfect. Here's what we should do. Like, we should create a shared playlist and then just dump songs into it, right? Like,
Okay.
because it's gonna be a nightmare for me. Well, we can do the Discord as a chat, but it's gonna be a nightmare for me to find some of these songs. But if we get it, just you get a second here and there, we can just continue adding songs to this massive playlist. You
That would be
know,
cool.
something
I would
something
almost
like
like
that.
one specifically for soundtrack music, though.
Yeah.
I would almost like. I feel like
Okay,
I need that,
okay.
like
If it's
sorted, at least sifted out. Like
well,
because
that's fine, but then I'll need a separate playlist from you guys
Yeah,
at
yeah,
some
for
point.
sure. For
That,
yeah,
sure.
yeah, I wouldn't
okay.
want to mix those two because it's different. I feel like it's a different vibe to me. But
I mean,
like
yeah.
having a playlist for like all of our just like
Okay.
songs, songs we like by bands and artists, and then and then making one that's just for like video game /
Instrumental.
movies, instrumental
Yeah.
soundtrack stuff. That
Yeah.
having a playlist just of
Okay.
that stuff seems really good.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's do that then. Yeah, I like both ideas. Yeah, I think it's good to keep the the more, I guess, traditional lyrical music um separate from the instrumental, because I that is so true. I'll play my like songs and 1 minute it's playing something with lyrics like a typical song, I guess you'd say, and then it's like some 7 minute long orchestral piece, and I'm like, that just totally broke the rhythm completely. I can't switch between them like that. So yeah.
Yeah.
All
Hey,
right, guys.
these can even be like official, like amongst friends playlists. We can
Okay,
link these in
Hmm.
that
YouTube
sounds
wherever.
awesome.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
love that. Let's do that. I'll start on it
Oh yeah.
tonight because now I'm excited. All right, guys. Well, we've been on for a while. Chat, thank you so much for hanging with us and talking with us and sharing all these memories and stuff. It's been really
Yeah.
fun
I love
talking
the
about it.
chat was such a big part of it
Yeah,
this
Yeah.
time around,
chat, you were
especially
awesome.
because yeah, good stuff. Thanks for stopping by and listening and sharing the nostalgia.
Yep.
Yeah. And just to reiterate, chat, like I really, even though we know who probably half the people are in the chat and stuff, it's really makes it really fun having y'all do this with us. So thank y'all for always joining and keeping the conversation going. It's fun. I'm grateful for
Yes.
it. All right, y'all. Nighty night. Thanks so much.
Good night.
Good night, guys.